Well, good evening, ladies, gentlemen, and whoever or whatever you identify as. Welcome back to the Shed of Dread. Welcome to another Why We Love Doctor Who stream. And as you can see, I have John next to me and our very, very, very special guest star, Ian. Welcome to the channel, gentlemen, and welcome to this very special and, shall we say, exclusive interview.
Yeah, well, I don't do many of these.
No, I know you don't know. I'm truly honoured to have you on the channel, sir. It's an absolute pleasure.
I am beyond chuffed. It's so lovely, and we've just been holding ourselves back for half an hour.
It really has.
In the green room. Just to go right, we got to save this. So this is going to be such a pleasure and a privilege, Ian, to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us,
John. I was so touched by your bravery and how you're facing your problems. I just wanted to do what I could to support you.
God bless you.
I thought the best way to support you is come on, and that's why you've already watched it.
Absolutely. Let's have some fun together. What could be better? That was just so wonderful that you've responded and come to join us. And of course, one of the reasons you've responded is because your own family has been touched by the same tragedy.
My cousin Rosalie Bleakman, she had pancreatic cancer, and of course, sorry, the dog just came in, knocked the door off the computer. She had pancreatic cancer, and her son is a very, very famous skilled doctor, and all the doctors gave her 3 months to live. And she said to me, "Look, I've got a lot to live for. I've got 8 grandchildren. I want to live a bit longer. I'm going to live longer. I'm going to beat the odds." And she did for 3 whole years when they gave her 3 months, and she was so brave. At the end, she was in pain at the end, and she came to deal with it. She had all her grandchildren. She was a wonderful woman. My late mother adored her. The difference between her and my mother is that she lived on with cancer for 3 years. My mother went in 5 minutes from an aneurysm. She was fine. There was a bell 5 minutes before she died, and she just went just like that.
Wow.
But my mother adored her, and her bravery through those years, and I know I wanted to convince you, John, that if you determine to see the next couple of seasons of Doctor Who, if you have something to live for, you want to see the 60th anniversary stuff, you want to see Ncuti Gatwa become the new Doctor with Millie, and I think that if you really want to, you will.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ian.
It's about willpower, John.
I hear you and I feel you. So absolutely.
I had bladder cancer, which I was cured of. Unfortunately, pancreatic cancer is the worst and the most terminal cancer there is. But if you can buy yourself 3 more years, I gather you're having some treatment to postpone.
Yes. At first, I was given 3 to 6 months. So that was December. But they've investigated further, and it's turned out that I have, although I'm starting from a terrible place, because this has been missed for ages and misdiagnosed and suddenly found after 2.5 years of trying to get help, which is awful. But there we are. It's what's happened.
Pancreatic is the worst.
It is very hard to detect. It is true.
I'm glad. I was very serious with it, but the radiation got rid of it. The radiation gave me sepsis. So
bless you.
And they said it was 50-50 whether I lived or died.
Oh, I'm sure it was. Sepsis is so nasty.
Stroke 9 years ago, which left me unable to use my left hand and left leg. So I've been through the wars, but
you certainly have.
Really have.
So much to live for. And I lived for Doctor Who like I did when I was 10 years old, when I sat and watched the first episode in my house in Blackpool.
That is beautiful.
I went back to school on the Monday, and my best friend at school I was 10, remember. I was at Arnold Junior School in Blackpool. My best friend was called Savile Sykes, and he was just as fascinated by it as I was. So we each went out and bought an exercise book, book with lines in. You buy in a newsagent. We each bought an exercise book, and we wrote out the plot as we remembered it, with as much dialogue, as much detail as we could. And each of us got to nearly 10 pages. And then we compared each other. Luckily, we've not, because it was shown the week after, because the day after Kennedy's assassination, a lot of people missed it. So Verity Lambert fought with Sidney Newman to get it shown again the next Saturday. So I sat down and I rewatched An Earthly Child, followed by The Cave of Skulls. So we wrote both episodes up in these exercise books and compared them. And we pretty much got all the details about how Cal tried to come back into the cave and fight with Tsar when they'd made fire. All those things, my memories were from when I was 10. And having seen it twice and having written it up, when you've seen something, you go to trouble writing it out, it stays more in your brain than it would have done if you just watched it and had a sleep and watched something else. It was on my brain, especially up to the Daleks and through the Edge of Destruction, Bring of Disaster. Through those, it was just done from memory. Once Marco Polo started, a piece of paper started making notes. So all the things like Shang 2 and,
Could I just say something here, Ian? I mean, you're telling me this story, and I am so moved by it because I was it was season 9. Day of the Daleks was being transmitted when I was born. And my earliest memories of the show are bits of Series 11, bits of The Time Warrior, or bits of Amongst the Peladon, or Planet of Spiders. But listening to you, I'm just struck by how great it is to be talking to somebody who was, frankly, you were perfect. You were perfect for the show. As a young man, you're 10 years old, you're articulate, you're passionate, you're intelligent, you're creative, and this wonderful show just comes and lands in your life, and look how you respond to it.
I was a bit of a whiz kid. For instance, when I was 7 at school, they had the teacher started talking about dinosaurs, and I put my hand up and said, "Please, miss," my mother remembered this. "Please, miss, you've got it all wrong. That's not right." And so she said, "Well, you know better. Come and talk to the class." And I did, because my grandma bought me this huge book on dinosaurs. And I learned all about.
I would just like to give you credit where credit is due. You are the authentic, genuine, undisputable first generation Doctor Who fan.
I am, with Richard Landon and Jeremy Bentham and Jan Vincent Rudsky.
And not only are you a historian of the show, you are a living embodiment of the history of the show. And now here you are, and you're going to get to look forward to this 60th anniversary year.
People don't like that. For instance, when they animated The Abominable Snowmen, Gary Russell got it all wrong intentionally. He didn't like the way Padma Samavar looked, because Wolf Morris, who played him, was a big, stocky actor. Have you ever seen the old?
Yes, I have. I've seen the recons. I know what he looked like. He completely changed him.
The 6 Wives of Henry VIII, the BBC series from 1970, the classic with Keith Michelle. Have you ever seen it?
Vaguely.
I think I actually have. I think I would have done, but it would have been some time ago. But I would have been a sucker for that.
Wolf Morris plays Thomas Cromwell in that. You can see he's a big, stocky guy. He's not very tall, but he's an overweight, stocky kind of guy. That's what he is. And an incredible actor. And as Padma Samavar in the show, he was captivating, absolutely entrancing. And for Gary Russell to draw him, how his animators not look like that, but make him look like Shaggy out of Scooby-Doo. It's just
I describe it as an AD&D lich.
Yeah.
If you play Dungeons and Dragons and an undead sorcerer character is called a lich, I mean, that's just exactly what he created. That's a lich on the telly there.
It's not his place or his right to create something like that. He's supposed to be bringing the missing shows back to life. Shows that I've championed and spent my whole life searching for. I found Abominable Snowman Part 2. It was missing from the BBC. I gave it back to the library. That's why they still got it today. So why should I sit back as the person who rescued?
Well, can be honest and admit that he made some of those changes for modern political reasons?
I'm not going to sit back and watch somebody bastardize it, because it's supposed to be faithful to what was shown. The Moonbase is the greatest animated Doctor Who ever. Moonbase 1 and 3 that are animated are so wickedly accurate, just like they merge into episodes 2 and 4. They fill the gaps. And then
they are very good.
The actors look right, and the Simon look right, and the ships look right, and everything on it looks right, as opposed to the shit that was the Abominable Snowman, which does not look anything like it on TV.
I could only say I would prefer authenticity, absolutely.
I
But
insist
as
on
a
you.
punter, what can I do?
I
So
insist.
I have bought the range to support it because I wanted to have more
You
animated.
must support it because any animation is better than none. But if it's
Yeah.
going to be animated, it needs to be done correctly, like the Moonbase was. The
Yes,
Moonbase,
I agree. I
one,
agree.
one or three
I
of the
agree.
Moonbase and the 10th Planet Far are the best animations we've had. Now, some others, I like the style of the invasion. There's a lot of faults in part one, particularly, where Zoe's got the wrong costume on and things. But I still like the style of animation. It's warm and acceptable and fits in with the other episodes. Tobias Vaughan looks brilliant in it. Packer looks correct in it. So I can live with the faults and the changes, but I can't really. What I can't live with is the Realm of Summer that and Fury from the Deep. They were one step.
Oh yeah, there's huge liabilities for taking
In
the Fury
Fury
from
from the Deep in part
Oh,
6,
yeah.
the Doctor tried to pilot the helicopter away back to the shore. While he was doing it, all those what would you call them? Bases all connected together.
tentacles, tendrils.
No.
What-
Talk about the metal buildings.
Oh, the oil. Well, it's an oil rig, isn't it? A
Oil rigs, isn't it?
gas refinery.
Oh, no, it's not an oil rig. It's several buildings linked together. That they're actually based on the Thames estuary. Anyway, the whole point of the plot there was where Troughton can't really navigate the helicopter and he's ducking and diving under the gangways, the
Yes.
connections between the five of them. That's what was going on, and why the helicopter was so fraught. And instead, Gary Russell stuck in great big seaweed tendrils coming out of the sea. Now, how the hell in 1968 is the BBC going to manage to make 24 tendrils come out of the sea?
No, it's never going to happen. Ever.
No, never going to happen.
It's got a lot of episodes missing. God forbid when they do the master plan, if they ever get it wrong, I shall be on them like a ton of bricks. Because I want to
That
see
would
it.
be tragic.
I've got the transcriptions at 60 pages an episode for that, and notes that I made while I was watching it. For instance, like I did with Galaxy 4 when I drew the rills. I drew the rills so accurately that when the episode Airlock turned up, you can see it's exactly like my drawing that I did at the time while watching it live. And the same with the screamers in part 3 of the Moss Fan, Devil's Planet. They're like they're puppets made like bats with very, very long teeth. It's just that I'm a stickler for authenticity. I want to see, as they're not going to turn up, all that Philip Morris bullshit, they're not going to turn up. So there's 97 episodes missing, but at least 50 of those have been animated. I want to see all the others animated. I don't want them to release the box set of Volume 1 without Marco Polo being animated. I don't want to see them release Volume 3 without the Master Plan being animated. And the Massacre and the Mythmakers, my 3 all-time favourite stories. In fact, my 4 all-time favourite stories all came from season 3. The other one being the Celestial Toymaker.
I would love to talk to you about all of this. I mean, firstly, on the animated front, we have recently had the news, which seems a little sketchy, but seems to be legit. But there will be 2 more animated stories
The Smugglers.
by the end of this year: The Smugglers and The Underwater Menace.
I welcome that. It's wonderful.
Absolutely, there's two down. And 2 that wouldn't necessarily
the Highlanders.
one.
If they then did the Highlanders, they could release the entire season 4.
Yes, that's clearly we're getting close to seeing that.
I thought the Power of the Daleks was very good. When they did a second version, it was more dark and mysterious. I love Power of the Daleks. It captured what the show was.
I have to admit, I didn't buy the updated version of that one, so I haven't seen it.
Oh, sure.
I've only seen the original.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I'll take that recommendation. I'll search one out.
I'd usually buy one for you and send it you.
Oh, bless you. That would be very, very generous, but I wouldn't expect you to do that.
They did miss out a little scene in the TARDIS of Troughton playing the flute, which was on the first version and not on the second. I don't understand why Charles Norton did that. But the image of the characters and Troughton's expressions and the way the Daleks behaved and everything was as I vividly remember it. I mean, I know that story inside out. In fact, I believe, if I go back to my exercise books, which I haven't seen for years, Derek Hanley borrowed them about 3 or 4 years ago and hasn't returned them yet. He's still got them all. As I recall, the most number of pages was in Power of the Daleks. There was definitely 70 pages per episode.
Well, Derek needs to bring your books back.
Yeah.
Derek needs to bring your books. 4 years. I think that's long enough on anyone's London City.
Derek is a remarkable character who does a remarkable, painstaking job. He has got the best ever collection of photographs of the history of Doctor Who.
Wonderful.
He consults when he's not sure about something. He always comes to me and asks me. He's a brilliant genius of a guy, and his reconstructions, thank God for them. I mean, they put Box 2 out with only 2 episodes of The Crusader because he at least reconstructed the other 2.
Yes.
It's just Derek Hanley, you're a genius, and you've done such a wonderful job. There are people who really care. I mean, I know I'm very controversial. I don't hold back. I don't filter what I'm saying. The worst person for Doctor Who was Dan Hall. He absolutely wrecked that range, did terrible things with it. He teased me on about Shard, and then I'd spent £41,000 and he didn't take it. I mean, lots and lots of things about him. But when he put Silver Nemesis out, the extended version with all the 10 minutes of extra scenes was quite good and made it into a much better story. And he refused to put it on the DVD. It had been on VHS. And the final insult is what he did with the Abominable Snowmen. He gave John Kelly actual instructions, not allowed to use a telesnap more than once, and not even allowed to have the title sequence on. He was only allowed to use each telesnap once. He wanted to make the naffest, cheapest, crappiest thing he could, and he put it out, and it was an absolute embarrassment. It really was.
Ian, I would love to talk to you about your Charter project, because I mean I know I've heard the figure before of how much you put into that project, and you know that again is the mark of a really dedicated fan, and it's a real great shame that didn't work out. And I mean, as it happens, I've got every version of Charter apart from yours.
Everybody still says it was better than the BBC one, and the fact that they missed loads of scenes out. For instance, the scene where the Doctor's against the railings and the sphere's coming to his head, and the TARDIS lands, and Ramon opens the door and says, "Doctor, get in quick." And he gets in, his scarf is hanging out the door of the TARDIS. That was followed by a TARDIS scene where he's trying to pull the scarf through the doors of the TARDIS, which they left out completely. They just most of the TARDIS scenes in that story were removed. A lot of it didn't make sense.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
One problem with mine is that it didn't have Tom Baker, it had Paul Jones.
So is it possible to see your version anywhere, Ian? No. Is it possible to actually see it? Is it available?
I'm going to be careful because of my standing with the BBC and various reasons.
I understand completely.
Copyright, but I did what I put up one time 10 years ago. It was 10 years before my stroke. I put up an hour compilation of all the different projects we've done. And
that's still on YouTube. That's on YouTube at the moment.
Yeah.
Someone who hated me, calls himself Tommy Asshat. He put it up saying, "Ha ha, Ian Levine, you can't stop me."
I didn't know that background. Right.
That's it does have a clip from Shada in it. It does have a clip from Mission to the Unknown in it. The Mission to the Unknown is wonderful. I worked with an animator called David Bush, and he had a whole team there. I paid him for it, and I was consulted. You know, I gave them certain sketches and the images they need to use.
Unfortunately, arse hats are a curse we all have to cope with. They get everywhere. They've been troubling you recently, haven't they, Tommy? They've been copy striking his videos. He's got nothing to do with video.
Nothing. Nothing.
The guy Tommy Assad, his thing was to pretend an very, very elaborate hoax that some episode had been found when he actually looked at the Rick Astley video. That happened. Before him, there was Roger Barrett, and there was Darren. Oh, what's his name? Awful guy from Blackpool. I can't remember what his name is.
Well, I mean, even when I was a teenager, you know, people claimed to have 10th Planet Part 4 was an easy way to get a lot of attention.
Yeah, that was Roger Barrett. Jane T. believed it, announced it.
Yeah, I mean,
I said I'll believe it when I see it.
unfortunately, we are
Darren
hungry with our
Gregory,
desperation.
Darren Gregory, one of the worst hoaxers ever. He claimed he had Fury from the Deep Part 5 and 6, and James Russell, he said it was on an old U-matic tape. So James Russell took one of my U-matic machines on the train and went all the way to Blackpool to see him, and it was all bullshit. You see, these people wasted time. There was a guy in Australia called Alan Ainsworth, who I thought was genuine, who said he had Part 4 of Marco Polo. And while I was on the phone, he was on spooling the film and holding up to light. And he said, I can see it very clearly here, the wall of lies. And it was a wall of lies. People have tried to hoax, but there's no sense behind it.
Now, if I remember rightly, the first story.
Philip Morris is a different animal altogether. Philip Morris did come up with
Web of Fear and Enemy of the World.
Yeah, 9 missing episodes because we found part 1 of Web of Fear, and the BBC had part 3 of Enemy of the World. So 5, 6, and yes, he got 9 episodes. Originally, he said he had part 3 of Web of Fear, but he didn't. But he also led people on to think he got Marco Polo, and he was such a. He behaved like a hoaxer, but he actually had some credibility. And he found some Morecambe and Wises and Dad's Armies and things. But the problem is because he behaves so sickeningly, everybody hates him. Whereas me, everything I got, I returned to the BBC. I got Adventure of Dinosaurs Part 1 that was missing, the only surviving film print. I got Abominable Snowmen 2. I got the Time Meddler episodes 1 and 3, but then later in Nigeria, I found all 4. So we got part 4. I found the War Machines in Nigeria. If you add the list up of what was missing that I found, it comes to 20 odd.
Well, I mean, your contribution is simply amazing, Ian. And I mean, that's not the whole of the contribution. Missing episodes.
I care. I don't want these people. Paul Vanessa's reckons there are people now hoarding Doctor Who's. The point is that is sickening. All I wanted to do, my dream when I was a teenager, was that one day you could go into a shop like W.H. Smith or Woolworths, both of which don't exist anymore. And
pretty much.
And you'd be able to actually buy the old Doctor Who's on a shelf like you could the old Star Trek. But
and it's a beautiful dream. And you did so much to make it a reality.
The BBC destroyed so many, but the classic was in 1978 when John Bridger and I went into Pamela Nash's office.
Look, Ian, can I just wind in? I feel like I would like to just say a little bit here on the topic of Philip Morris, because I did expect that maybe we might touch on this, because I feel it's only fair to put my hand up and say Philip is a friend of mine, and my own personal view would be much like yours. If I had a missing episode in my hands, I would not want to keep it for myself. I'd want to turn it in. But I understand everybody's point of view in this.
He had those episodes.
It's difficult. It's difficult. I mean, the one thing that I'm led to believe, not from Philip, but from general conversation in fandom, is that if there are any episodes still out there, then they're almost certainly now in the hands of private collectors, rather than sitting in the shelf on a TV station somewhere.
No, but
that route's pretty much done.
They would die before giving them back. That's what's so upsetting.
Well, but the thing is, the reason is, why do they want to keep hold of them? Some of it may be personal selfishness, a sort of collecting attitude, but there are some sore feelings about prior dealings with the BBC, is what I've been led to understand, which is holding back some of these people from giving episodes back in. But I mean, how true or not that is, I really don't know. I don't know what anyone might have.
I wrote the entire BBC 20th anniversary special in 1983. I wrote the whole thing, and I wrote a piece saying the BBC are given an official amnesty. If anyone ever returns an episode, there'll be no questions asked, no.
I remember that.
Yes.
We were just praising that special last week.
You'll get your original back. We just want to borrow it. so we can preserve it. That's all.
I adored every word of that special, Ian. Thank you.
Sure, because
Yeah.
that's my history of the show in there, episode by episode. I made sure that nobody would ever get disciplined or punished for returning a missing BBC print. That's the point. All we do is get them back. We did everything. We telex Cyprus, so I got the reply back saying we got Reign of Terror part 1, 2, 3, and 6. Coincidentally, Paul Vanessa had found it separately twice. I'm the one that got them back from Cyprus. And I think, was it Hong Kong? Hong Kong. I'm getting confused now because one of them, we said, please look for any old doctors and send them back if you find them. And literally, like 6 years later, one of them found Tomb of the Cybermen from the original telex. And they remembered reading it. That's why they sent it back. Similarly, in Hong Kong, one of them found me the Celestial Toymaker Part 4.
Oh.
In replying to the text. So as I said, there's more than 20 that I did find. And then you got to count the Daleks, which I literally ripped this gaffer tape. It was taped up in white cloth tape.
Now, I have to speak up at this point again, because in our first episode, I spent 15 minutes at least waxing lyrical about how much I simply adore the pants off the Daleks. And how, for me, it's always going to be in my top 5 stories.
Let me try to get a picture for you. This room was quite small. There was a small room in Villiers House, which is next to the building adjoining Ealing Broadway train and tube station. And Villiers House was the building around the station entrance. And in there was this one little room with 4 walls, all shelved from top to ceiling. And on the floor was this pile of tapes. And it was taped up in this white gaffer tape, cloth tape. Had a big red rubber stamp had been put on top of the tape, saying withdrawn, deaccessioned, and junked. What that meant, step 1 withdrawn meant withdrawn from overseas sales. Yes. Deaccession meant the cards for each episode were held in a place called accessions. When they're deaccessioned, it means the cards were removed as they were no longer being sold. And junk meant they were physically thrown into the skip. And the guy Perry, who was there, who showed us around, he said to me, I've been told to throw that away in the skip later this afternoon. So back tonight would have gone. And I ripped the tape off with my bare hands and put the tins back on the shelf. He says, you can't do it. That's more than my job's worth. And I had with me a guy called John Bridger, who was selling me the films. He worked for the BBC Film Library sales, domestic sales, not commercial sales. And up to that point, they'd never been able to sell Doctor Who to anyone. I only managed to get my foot in the door because I tried everything and they refused to sell it to a private individual. Too many rights, they couldn't sell it at all. And they were past the 7 years thing. So I was told by our guy called Arthur Jerome, it all came back. You see, my parents owned a nightclub in Blackpool called the Lemon Tree. And every time they went for the exhibition, John Pertwee came with Terry Sampson and Lorne Martin, who ran the exhibition. They would go to my parents' nightclub for dinner. So my mum rang me up. I think I've been in London. I'd come back to Blackpool. She rang me up. She said, quick, Doctor Who's in the club. I said, you're joking. So I jumped in the car and went round there and had dinner with them. Sat there all evening, dinner with them. And so in 1978, in January of each year, I went to a music business forum in Cannes, the south of France, called MIDEM. It was like an expo for record companies and record producers. And they ran BBC Records as well as BBC Exhibitions. So at the airport, they were there queuing up. Ian, how are you? You know, that kind of thing. Surprised to see you. So we all sat together on the plane. That's how the story got. I told them the story. I've tried everything to save these old episodes from being destroyed, buy my own copies and whatever I can do. They won't let me. And they said, leave it to us. And they spoke to Arthur Jerome at Film Library Sales. And he said, if you adhere within the 7-year rule, meaning nothing older than 7 years, we will then, once you bought one print, we'll find a way to sell you the rest. So we had to buy Frontier in Space. So I put my money up with Richard and Jeremy Bentham. And Then when I paid for it, £3,000 to get it up country in space.
Wow.
Turned out
This is the mid-70s, everybody.
Yes, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, this is proper money being put on the table
Proper
here,
money.
by Ian.
This is 78, and they had wiped parts 1, 2, 3, and 6, so they only had color part 4 and 5, and they had the film negatives that they used for overseas sales. So I had to buy 4 of the 6 episodes in black and white, and only 2 in color. We thought we'd never get Frontier Space in color, but anyway, we gave them £3,000 and we bought it. And then I managed to meet John Bridger, who was at the film library in Brentford, and he said a lot of things were in the film library, odd episodes, not full stories. The only full stories there were Spared from Space, which they had on color film, and Unearthly Child, where they had all 4 episodes. The rest was sporadic bits and pieces, like as an example, they had part 5 of the Keys of Marinus. They had none of the Aztecs. Just random stuff. Part 5 of the Dalek Invasion of Earth. Bits and pieces all over the place. Anyway, so I started buying what they had. I was not allowed near Villiers House. Villiers House had the negatives for overseas sales. It was run by Pamela Nash. When I finally got to Villiers House, that was the day that the Daleks was all taped up. And if I had been one single day later, you wouldn't have it now. Well, you might.
It's mind blowing to me, Ian, because I first got to see the Daleks 10 years later, when True to Your Dream, it was released as a 2-part VHS set for £19.99, I believe. And yes, I bought it from W.H. Smith's.
You have to imagine the scene in Pamela Nash's office. Me and Joe, we said to the guy Perry, "Who's destroying these?" And he said, "Pamela Nash." Well, I said, "Where is she?" And she said, "Just down the corridor, 3rd door on the left." So me and John Bridger went, knocked on her office and came in. And she said, "I'm John Bridger from BBC Film Library Sales. My client, Ian Levine, is buying old Doctor Who's." Oh, shit, that's very nice for him. He said, "We've just found the first Dalek story taped up and on the floor, ready for going to the skip." She said, "Are you trying to tell me how to do my job?" He was trying to pacify. No. She said, "They're all black and white films. Nobody wants them." And I started jumping up and down, getting excited. "I want them. Don't do it." She wouldn't listen. So John Bridger went back to Perry. They said, "Look, if she tried to make you do it now, will at least give us time to go back to Wimble Road in Brentford and get an official letter to stop it being destroyed. Just please, will you keep them for 3 hours for me?" He promised he would. So we got in the car, we drove to Wimble Road, drove to met Sue Malden for the first time. She was horrified because she had no idea.
Because Sue changed everything, didn't she? And once you'd met Sue, she that was the turning of the tide, wasn't it?
Once I met Sue, she gave us a letter to Pamela Nash saying, "Please do not destroy these episodes from the Dalek story. Instead, I'll get an official letter, come down there and collect them. Please do not destroy them. They're very valuable to the film library." And I handed that to her personally and watched her read it. Like curses falling again. She was she didn't like me at all. She was quite put out that somebody interfered with her bureaucratic way of working. If you imagine, she had black hair parted in the middle, tied behind the back of her head in a bun, very old-fashioned glasses. She looked every inch.
She sounds like the embodiment of BBC middle-class snobbery.
I was about to say that.
I know, but
of the kind that used to read the news with a proper voice.
In 1972, every single Doctor Who episode, apart from The Feast of Stephen, that's the only one, had been held in the library. From 1972 to 1978, she had destroyed 200 of them. Oh. And that was what made me sick to my stomach.
Was she a secret agent for Mary Whitehouse?
No, it's very like Mary Winehouse. Very
well, I mean, I'm just trying to connect some dots here, Ian. I've got a mind that works like that. There's something behind her behaviour.
Sue Malden was astute enough in 1978 to see that these things would have value in time. Although the BBC claimed we can't repeat them after 7 years, so we might as well destroy them. She saw otherwise. She was her first person. She was the first BBC archivist ever. That was her job.
She's lovely. I've seen some interviews with
As
her
the
on YouTube, with you as well.
There's a great video on YouTube, me and her telling the whole story about this.
Yes, I checked that out.
So we spoke about 3 hours. And nobody, apart from me, no one else held a word in Edgeworth.
Can I just drop in, guys? I've had a message. Message from TARDIS time. Ian, from my granddad, my dad, and me. Thank you, can't even speak English today. Preserving this wonderful show so it could be passed down in our families and others. So you've got a great thank you there.
I never did it to get thanks. I never did it to get acclaim in any way. I only did it because I wanted them to survive.
You did
What
it because you had that love of the show in your heart.
What we haven't discussed, when I was 10 years old and watching An Earthly Child, is how special it was and it had an intangible magic that no one can actually understand. But people who worked on it, like Russell T Davies, know what it is. It's just, look, it started off in an ordinary school, just like an ordinary BBC children's program kind of thing. And suddenly, like from the ordinary to the fantastic, when they enter the police box, it's bigger inside than outside. It's got all those beautiful circles that Peter Brachaki designed, which I knew very quite well. We had lunch, dinner and things. If you watch Mark Gatiss' story on Adventure in Time and Space, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a great production.
A whole scene when Verity Lambert comes into his office and pushing him, and he had his hand, he just picks up some bits of cardboard and pushes the holes out. That's what really happened.
Well, I can promise you that An Earthly Child did get his chance to work its magic on me in 1981, where I was wrapped in front of the little television with the 5 Faces of Doctor Who season, which it opened.
I know, which I compile for JMT.
Wonderful. So, again, thank you again. Brilliant excuse to show us Earthshock once more.
Yes.
Was it Earthshock or Androzani in that?
All I've tried to do all my life is to make these things available to last the test of time, because they're classics and they're modern, they're art from the 20th century. They shouldn't be destroyed. They should never have been destroyed. And God forbid, when you look at even the reconstruction of the Massacre and the Mythmakers, they are so advanced. What no one's ever given John Wiles the credit for what he was. He took over from Verity Lambert and he took a wonderful show one step better by making it like almost Shakespearean in style. I mean, nothing has ever hit home like the Dalek Master Plan. Nothing since has ever. I mean,
see, I'm fascinated by this. I'm fascinated that your favourite stories are in season 3.
Which is very
I'm curious to ask a question. Why do you feel that was there something special about season 3? Had the show John Wiles, and that's been the difference.
John Wiles was a genius. I'm going to swear. He was a seriously fucking brilliant genius.
Because knowing
him together with Donald Tosh as a pair, John Wiles and Donald Tosh, created the most inventive, cleverly scripted Doctor Who ever. The scripting in the Dalek Master Plan, and in the episode that survives, part 2, where Bravik Chen's having the argument with Zenta, with the Zephon, and he's saying, considering the what the hell was it? Considering the something of the embodiment Greece of all at separate times branded you as a traitor. And you know,
sorry to interrupt, gentlemen, but I have another guest.
Oh, please.
You ready? Welcome, Sophia.
Hello, Sophia.
Hi.
How's the little one? Is he all right?
Yeah, he is. Thank you, Gobby. Just to tell everyone, I was supposed to join earlier, but my son's not very well today, so I was just looking after him. But hello, Ian. It's so lovely to meet you. I've heard wonderful things about you.
I love the girl in the fireplace. Stephen Moffat has been a very good friend of mine for years.
Oh, really?
When I wrote my autobiography, which was quite proud, I didn't let many people see it. The whole chapter about him.
Oh, he's lovely. Yeah, I love Stephen. He's an amazing writer.
In fact, when I had the stroke, he dropped everything. He phoned me up. He was trying to worry about me. He was a great guy.
Oh,
And
that's nice.
The Girl in the Fireplace was one of those episodes I didn't quite appreciate at first how good it was. But like one of these older stories we were talking about earlier, the Dalek Master Plan, there's something about the Girl in the Fireplace which is so cleverly, the way that the Doctor goes back on the ship for 5 minutes and his 5 years have passed in her life. And the ending when you see that carriage with her coffin leaving the palace for the last time.
Oh, yeah.
It-
Did you watch, Ian, did you see the bit that Stephen wrote that I read during lockdown?
Yes,
You did?
yes.
Oh, good.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Yeah, it was special. Oh,
Yeah, that was you're very blessed to be in such a regarded episode as that. Absolutely. Modern day classic.
So you've been
That-
a fan since you were 10, is that right?
Yeah.
Bobby was filling me in.
From the
Yeah.
first episode, yeah.
Wow.
very first one. The
And I-
ultimate
This is
super.
what I've been trying to
ultimate
tell
Superman.
Ian today, Sophia, is but to me, he is not only the very first fan, he's the first generation of fan, he's the first generation of historian of Doctor Who, but he's also the living embodiment of the history and spirit of Doctor Who fandom. This man is just so wonderful. Well, and I'm thinking about all the things he's done over the last 60 years, and to get a chance to talk to you, Ian, I'm over the moon. This is just a wonderful opportunity for me. I can't be happier.
I just want what I always wanted is for the early episodes of Doctor Who were works of art, as the Girl in the Fireplace was a work of art. I want someone to be able, the BBC to have a suitcase of DVDs of Blu-rays available. Doctor Who, the complete collection, 1963 to 2026 or whatever. I want one day people to be able to buy the whole history and watch it from the start to the end. As so many episodes are missing, they can only do that by the animation. And the animation has been very good in some cases and abominably poor in other cases. I'm just trying to make an argument, a fight for the animated missing episodes to be as authentic as possible to what was actually aired on the screen when I watched them.
How many hours of television, if you sat down and watched the entirety of Doctor Who since it began till now, how many hours of television or of your life
Can
do you
you
think
see
it would be?
behind me?
Yes, kind of.
That was a giveaway with Doctor Who magazine in 2013 for the 50th anniversary with a picture from every episode for 800 episodes. That's the full story. Beginning to end, that's the picture of every episode. I want people to be able to go from beginning to end and watch them.
I'm sure that Google could actually give a precise answer to that question, but I've just been ballparking it in my head, and I think it must be upwards of 1,200 hours for classic and
Roughly,
new.
yeah.
Really would work it out on a calculator. What you see, you can watch the first series. You can watch Unearthly Child, the Dalek, first Dalek story, which I saved from being booked in the skip, and the Edge of Destruction. And the next story, which is Marco Polo, where they visit Cathay, is missing completely. 7 episodes. And that was the story that took them from being a bunch of strangers in a time and spaceship, where they bonded because it was spread over 6 or 7 months. But when they bonded and became close friends, and the characters grew. And without that story in season 1, you're missing the growth of the show at the beginning. You're missing such a major part of it. And that makes me cry that they destroyed all the negatives.
And it was such an unusual historical as well because of how it treated time. Because that story took place over weeks, didn't it? It didn't usually happen.
Almost a year.
Yes, yeah, over almost a year.
What
So
is
over
to say-
7 episodes, the audience went on a year-long odyssey across. I mean, it's incredible.
Wallace Hussein, who directed it, is a very dear friend of mine. We've discussed it at great lengths. You know, it was originally called Doctor Who and a Trip to Cathay, he says.
Really? That was the original title of the show?
They called it Marco Polo.
Of that story, yes.
Wow.
No, Journey to Cathay,
Wow.
sorry. The Journey to Cathay, yeah.
I
But
mean, it became Marco Polo by the time it was put out.
it was like a BBC historical. It was like Henry VIII and Elizabeth R, that kind of thing. It was a wonderfully done BBC historical with the constant plot being the Doctor couldn't get to the TARDIS. was kept from him. It was banned from entry. When he tried to steal into it, there are lots of close escapes where they couldn't quite get together. One of them got caught and they couldn't get away over these 7 weeks. But the scale and the depth of the dialogue and the action, the plot,
The vision of the storytelling, just
I can't get
wonderful.
my head around how they could have destroyed it, regardless of what the contents were. Just okay, once it's 7 years old, we're not going to show it anymore. Get rid of it. I mean, they had a reason for wiping the actual videotapes because to save money, those videotapes were reused to make another program on them. So you've got an excuse for that. But when you've got a film negative to make prints from, destroying it has no possible virtue, does it? If just putting it in skip, like spaghetti.
I mean, I think it must come down to the shift to colour and the assumption that black and white was just not wanted anymore. I mean, there must have been some kind of attitude like that behind people's thinking. What else would they engage in cultural vandalism?
Peter Cook in the 70s, when he realised all their not only but also have been destroyed, Peter Cook started a big campaign against the BBC, claiming they had no right to destroy the actors' work.
Which would make sense because the public funded it.
You know, I mean, similar with Doctor Who, there were so many fans. Fandom didn't become organised till the 70s, really. There were so many fans of the show, like me, who wanted to see it again and it never got repeated. The first Doctor Who, apart from the first episode being repeated the week after, the next, I think, one ever to be repeated was Eve of the Daleks. It was the first time we ever had a Doctor Who repeat.
Fantastic. Yes.
From
Certainly, the episode Hartnell.
Another evolution of history. Well, of course, in those days, the show was on so many weeks of the year. There wasn't much space to cram and repeat in.
Yes, but
because it was 48 episodes a year, wasn't it?
Transformation episode of Hartland to Troughton they destroyed, and they destroyed the first Troughton story. In fact, so much. It's just arbitrary. Pamela Nash, they're just spool numbers to her. Everybody always says, "Oh yes, but she made the prints in the first place to sell." Nobody's ever actually accused her of being the reason why so much Doctor Who is missing, and they all kind of come to a defense, and that makes me sick.
Well, look, she was in the job, and she let it happen on her watch. Why shouldn't she, be called to account for that? I mean, of course, 1978 itself is now getting to be quite a while ago. But
the entire
history.
Gentlemen, sorry to interrupt. But someone's actually worked out how long it would take you to watch it all. 17,970 minutes long.
70 minutes.
Yeah, that's only classic.
Yeah, but
that's a lot of time.
Yeah,
what about?
That's just the crap.
What about from Rose to
yeah, he's missed that new Who's going to add that in.
I hate all this.
There you go.
I read something recently where the Shooty Gatwa season is going to be season 40, as well as series 14 of the new series. It should be season 40 because there's no difference between New Who and All Who. It's the same bloody show. So therefore, it really is the 40th series. Why can't they own up to that? The DC Comics did that with Action Comics. They got to 970 or something, and they scrapped it and went back to number 1. There was an outcry. This is super.
Well, I wouldn't rule out the show might go back to season 1. But I mean, Russell's done it once; he might do it again.
No, why can't we officially call it season 40?
Well, yeah, because let's be honest, we're celebrating how the 60 years and 50 years. So
let me prove it's the same show. We've had the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Sontarans, the Ice Warriors, the Great Intelligence, Sea Devils, Zygons. Help me here, someone.
Well, no, you're right, Ian. They've all come back. Ice Warriors, the Great Intelligence came back. Everything came back.
You might have the Celestial
same show with the same TARDIS and the same old monsters coming back. So it should be season
Well,
14.
I could completely see the sense in what you're
No, I
saying.
agree with
It
that.
was one
I
thing
agree.
when New Who was like 1, 2, 3 seasons, but now it's coming up to season 14. It's only got to do 12 more years. There'll be as much of it as there is classic. So surely it makes sense to
Exactly.
continue the Forest show.
But listen, like Sherlock Holmes, like Billy Bunter, like Robin Hood, fictional characters, Doctor Who won't go away now. It may be rested for a few years. It will always come back in some form or other. It's too popular. It's too entrenched in the 20th century.
Well, I wanted to tell you this, Ian, about season 3 of Doctor Who, because you've actually helped me out. And in our first episode, I talking about William Hartnell, and I admit that my favourite Doctor is actually Patrick Troughton.
My
And
favorite.
the reason for that is that that's how I encountered the character in the more formed version that Troughton represented. So to me, Hartnell's Doctor was kind of strange and a bit inaccessible. When I was a kid reading the Target book.
Because you've been denied the best of it. Look, I watch it from the first.
I completely agree, you know.
The town of 12 was already intelligent and astute enough to recognize quality. We'd had some great episodes, you know.
Well, what I wanted to tell you was that this week I watched the reconstructions of the Mythmakers and the Massacre because in our first episode I was saying, you know, I still struggled a bit with accessing Hartnell because of kind of having to get into the mindset, but you helped me get the mindset of approaching the show with a fresh approach. I watched both those stories.
The Massacre is unbelievable.
I completely agree.
The Doctor goes to visit a famous scientist called Charles Preslam in his apothecary, who, of course, at that time in Paris was considered to be heretical and he could have been burnt at the stake. So it's very rare when the Doctor goes to see him. The Doctor learns of this cruel tyrant, the Abbot of Amboise, who's persecuting anyone who's intelligent enough to develop science. So he says he's going off to see the Abbot of Amboise. Next thing, Stephen sees the Abbot of Amboise and he recognizes it as the Doctor, wearing the white skull cap and the white robes.
Yes.
He's got face, and he's convinced it is, where the other ones think he's betraying them. And he goes to the Abbot of Amboise. If you watch the scene listen to the scene very carefully with the reconstruction, you'll see he's trying to say Doctor, and the Abbot says, "What is this now?" And they leave you thinking that the Hartnell actor playing the Abbot is the Doctor, right until the moment, which they've got wrong in the recon.
It is wonderfully done. I completely agree. It is extremely high quality.
John, the end of part 3, the Doctor's body is on the steps. Steps of the Abbot's house. Down there, like a stoop, big load of steps. His legs were up at the top and his head was right down the gutter, which they didn't get right in the recon. I told her what he should have liked, but he didn't do it. But that's vividly burnt in my brain. And then the next week, when the massacre happened, they used those etching wood carvings of the time, which are authentic and were used by the BBC, and they superimposed the face.
Yeah, it was a really effective sequence. I mean, I felt watching the story, a couple of days ago. It made me think this is like the Eric Solwood story of the Hartnell years, because the actual death count is horrendous, isn't it? I can't stop it happening.
It's Saywood, not Solwood.
Solwood, yeah, Saywood, yes.
Saywood. He's a very good friend of mine. I've known him for how many years have I known him, man? I've known him for 40 years. And he
apologies for my slip of the tongue there. What I also adored about the story, Ian, was the soul searching the Doctor does at the end of it.
No, but the end
and he feels so alone, and Stephen stormed off.
The end of the massacre is the greatest ever seen in the history of Doctor Who, ever. Yep. If it had existed, you wouldn't have seen the bit so many times where the Doctor says goodbye to Susan. If it had existed, you would have seen that scene. I wish I could go home to my own planet, but I can't. And he's sobbing when he says
it is heartbreaking. Hartnell's performance, even with the audio,
He runs through every
Wonderful.
the show. He runs through Susan, Ian, and he even gets Chesterton's name wrong. He does. It's such a brilliant scene. It was Hartnell's greatest ever scene. I always knew at the time it was the greatest scene ever in the show, and it's still never been found, which is
Well,
sick.
I just want to
Gentlemen,
break up my fanboying here.
Gentlemen, can I?
Let's
Gentlemen,
let Sophia have a.
yeah, I was going to say.
Yes.
There you go.
It's not easy to break up fanboying.
I've got 2 questions for you, Ian. Number 1, have you been to see Stephen Moffat's new play in the West End?
No, I had a very bad stroke 9 years ago.
Oh,
I can't use this hand at all.
oh, because I was going to say, if you haven't, I want to go. So I wondered if you wanted to be my date.
So I'd have to take people to push my wheelchair and all that
Why
stuff.
do you push a wheelchair?
Yeah,
Where do you live? Do you live in London?
Acton.
Acton.
I mean, that's Lancashire area, isn't it?
It would be
Acton?
it would be such an honour to Acton. It's near
Not
Ealing.
in Lancashire. Acton.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right, yeah,
What? Where? What? Eh?
I might have heard Acton.
Acton. Sophia was such an honour.
So we know where you mean, Ian. It's just John's got no idea.
Yeah, but I'm muting myself up here for a moment.
Westland, Acton, Chiswick, and Ealing.
Yeah, I know exactly where.
West
So
Street. I mean,
you don't, do you not get out that much then?
I would definitely come with you. It'd be such an honour.
Well, why don't we try? I'll talk to Stephen and let me see what I can do. Maybe I'm going to have to go quite soon because I've got to put my son to bed. But Gobby or John, can I get Ian's details?
Yeah,
we'll work that out. Don't you worry, Sophia.
The other question to you, Ian, is that
is it Sophia or Sophia?
Sophia.
It's Sophia. Okay.
Yeah. My other question was that. So I have to admit that I'm not a Doctor Who fan. Generally I don't watch sci-fi. It's not my thing. So I everything you're saying is
you
good.
must.
You must be talking in Japanese.
Must be aware your episode was one of the classics. You must be aware.
Well, that's very kind. Thank you.
Everyone that knows me knows I don't give faint praise.
Oh, well, thank you. But the question that I had was that, I've been astonished how, an episode of television that took probably maybe 14 days of my life to make follows me everywhere. And I've started to attend conventions and meeting fans all over the world. But since meeting Gobby and John, I've become increasingly aware of a division that has happened within the fandom. Would you be able to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. The old fans, like myself, have been there since the beginning through classic Doctor Who. And we're quite proprietorial about it because it's meant so much in our lives. It's very hard to explain. Doctor Who is an intangible quality of magic that is very hard. All these, lots of full-grown men who are in their 40s and 50s have grown up with it and love it. And it's very passionate about it. I mean, amazing number of people in very high-powered jobs, from bankers to rocket scientists. And it's just got that moment when they first entered the police box, and the magic's still been kept there. Russell, when he writes, and Stephen always do that scene when the companion first walks into the TARDIS. Oh my God, it's bigger on the outside. David Tennant would say, "Is it?" Like they've heard it so many times before. But Doctor Who has never ever been bad, apart from one period. I don't like the Jodie Whittaker's era, and not just because of her, because I don't like Christian was writing. I felt personally, for me, there were only 2 good episodes in those 3 years.
Well, it's for writing first, foremost, last, and everything, isn't it? It's for writing. That was the problem all along, was for writing.
Having had 60 years of love for Doctor Who, I fell out of love with it for 3 years. It was heartbreaking.
God.
Absolutely heartbreaking.
Then, when I would complain online about it, people would say, "This from the man who brought us Doctor in Distress." Unfortunately, Doctor in Distress was a charity record I got conned into making. Although I did make it with Hans Zimmer, who won the Oscar for The Lion King, and
Oh,
That
wow. He's amazing. He's a legend,
It's,
Hanson.
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
he made the most god awful record you could ever imagine. Doctor in Distress, Let's All Answer His SOS.
That was back in 1985, Sophia, when the show was first rested.
Yeah,
Right.
rested.
Ian
rested.
produced a sequel to raise awareness and protest, and so we want our Doctor Who back. So I mean, he hates the record, fair enough, and I know that people are very cruel to him about it. But I love that he made it, because to 12-year-old me, I was reading Doctor Who magazine, and this man here was doing something to save my favourite show.
Well,
Hero worship.
News at 1, and J&T used me to talk to the Sun as a BBC insider. You know, they say, quote from a BBC insider. He had me talk to the Sun and give him all the facts, that because Michael Grade and Jonathan Powell had said they were cancelled. The show was being rested and would come back healthier than ever. And they were lying through their teeth. They weren't resting. They've admitted since they were not resting it. They were actually cancelling it. But the fuss that I made with J&T, I mean, J&T had a lot wrong. He was the producer at the time, but and he often used the show to his own advantage. The one good thing that he's done he's dead now. Anyway, one good thing that he did was to fight to save that show, because he bought it 4 more years, and it was then rested again, and they didn't admit it was cancelled, and it was off for 16 years, with the exception of one TV movie. So the show was hated by the BBC. People in the drama department, Peter Cregeen, Jonathan Powell, and Michael Grade, despised and hated the show, and they didn't care what the fans thought of it. And Doctor Who has always had the support of its fans. It's earned money from the BBC's enterprises and worldwide commercial arms, because it's been sold all over the world. In America, every single PBS station bought it, to Lionheart, and you know, it just has always been a successful money earner. Australia, New Zealand, everywhere. And the fans love it. You know, here am I, I'm 70 years old later this year, and I still love it.
You don't look it. You look about 50.
Thank God, I'm very proud of that. I don't look that age.
No, you don't. You really don't.
I remember
No.
I was 10 when
I mean, in the time we're talking about, over in America, there was Battlestar Galactica, there was Buck Rogers of the 25th Century, and then a little bit later on, there was Star Trek: The Next Generation. I mean, but the BBC was embarrassed by Doctor Who.
Hold on, now, can you let me get a word in?
Sorry,
Ian. One American show in the same league as Doctor Who, which is Babylon 5, which is, again, the writing and the acting and the character-driven plots are incredible. Nothing is Babylon 5.
Here.
Shame. And in sometimes it's put Doctor Who to shame. But again, the guy who created it, Joe Straczynski, he can't. They told him they're going to let him out a new series on the Warner Brothers CW channel, and that got rebought by someone else, and now it's all off again. He's been trying for 40 years to get the show back.
Yeah.
And that show
is tragic.
That is science fiction for clever people.
How did you feel when it came back with what's his name, Eccleston? How did you guys feel? Were you
static? Paul Vanessa, who was always on the restoration team, brought the DVD round to my house, to my home cinema, and we sat and we watched Rose, and then the trail clips. I was in tears. It was because it could have easily been crap. It could have been so bad coming back modernized. But the minute that Eccleston took Billy Piper's hand, who was playing Rose, says, I can feel the earth turning underneath my feet, going at so many miles per second, and I can feel this, and I feel everything. It understood Doctor Who. We've been very, very lucky, because Russell T Davies understands Doctor Who. Even Moffat understands Doctor Who and is a genius. Chris Chibnall did not understand Doctor Who, and he almost cancelled it forever.
Yeah, amen.
So your argument here is you're saying it's not about the fact that a woman played the role; it's to do with the writing.
It was never about the woman.
100%.
A preamble before we opened. They had a black woman called Jo Martin playing a what would you call it? A fugitive doctor.
Well, we're not sure, but she's a version of the Doctor. We're not sure.
She's usually called a fugitive doctor, but she's also called a pre-Hartnell doctor by some fans.
I believe that, but
the generation from before.
Acting and her character and her costume was so outstanding. I just
Was.
cried. I think she could have been the Doctor instead of Jodie Whittaker.
She
So I'm
was.
not
She was
against
funny.
Woman Doctor because I thought she was brilliant. And, you know, I don't against any race or any form, but it's about the acting. It's
Yeah.
about
You can't make this up, Ian. The night that Fugitive of the June went out, and despite what I said earlier, I have to agree it is the best episode of the whole Chibnall era, without a doubt.
Oh,
The night that it went out, I joined in with many other hundreds, even thousands of people who were tweeting to Jo Martin, and I congratulated on her
She was stunning.
performance.
Absolutely
And
stunning.
but I did express a concern for what it meant for the show's canon.
that's the problem.
But in
That
all
was the
other respects, my tweet was
I don't hold
extremely
with it. I
supportive.
don't hold with any. Have you watched the Timeless Children or Timeless Child? Yeah.
I am very well aware of it. Let's put it that way. I think watched is a strong word.
I hate that. Because
Yeah,
everybody,
it's a terrible thing.
hang on, now listen. No one's ever explained this to me. Who was the gingerhead baby that the guy brought home in a basket to his wife?
No one knows. No one knows.
But-
It was a
but
classic
Ian-
Chibnall. No one had a clue. It just
When
it was
he
there.
grew up-
Finish what I was just saying
When
there.
he grew up,
Because
though,
I
didn't someone execute him, or so I couldn't work out what the fuck was
No.
going on. I couldn't
No
work-
one could. No one could join the rest of us. We hadn't got a clue.
we were on the same page, you know.
Well, Flux would have been brilliant
It was
because
very bad.
the Sontaran parts of Flux and the Weeping Angel parts of Flux had the makings of great TV, but the rest was such utter bullshit, intertwined with incomprehensible plots. I didn't know what the hell was going on.
Ian, is it fair to say the Sontarans and the Weeping Angels had the making of great TV, but actually weren't? Because both episodes were still badly flawed by their scripts.
Yes, they were. I like the
And of course, the teaser with the end of the weekly episodes, that was an unforgivable way to tease fandom, wasn't it?
no, it was. But the woman, the black woman who had the British Hotel, what was her name?
Oh God.
We don't know it well enough. I've
I
only
will.
experienced it
I'll
once.
remember. God. Oh,
Mrs. something or other.
famous.
Mrs.
Oh, it's coming back to me. The lady who was the Napoleonic nurse who
Yeah,
was
she was.
really
She
running
was.
the hotel.
Mary Seacole. Mary
Yeah.
Seacole.
Thank you, Dobby.
That's it.
There you go. I knew it'd come back to the adult brain of mine.
She was, yeah, because I haven't wanted to. I can retain every detail in my head of Hartnell's era. I can answer any question on Hartnell or Troughton from any point.
Have you ever gone on? You should go on Mastermind. Have you ever done that for Doctor Who?
I'm not good enough on general knowledge. I've tried.
No,
I thought you just go on and you talk about what you did about it.
Several people have done Doctor Who on it. I've always answered all the
Right.
questions, but then they have to do another 20 questions.
General knowledge round.
And that's where I fall down.
Oh, listen, I'm awfully sorry, but I'm gonna have to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go because I've got to be a mum.
To me,
I just want to say it sounded so hopeful that you might be able to hook up with Stephen and sort out for Ian to come and see his play.
but you have to,
I hope that can work out.
so we have to sort the seats out with Stephen.
Yeah.
He come in a wheelchair. Can't sit on a.
So you need to sit at the end of an aisle,
Yeah.
on the end somewhere.
Yeah,
Let me.
next-
I owe him a call anyway.
Next
We'll
to
make
you.
sure you two are hooked up with contact at the end of this. Not a problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we'll sort it all out. We'll sort it
You
all
love
out.
me. We moved meeting you, and I'd love to go to that, and I'd love to have dinner with you.
Yeah, let's try. Maybe we can get Stephen to join us. We'll try and sort
Nice.
something out. But I want to go and see the play.
I do. Unfriended, isn't it? Unfriended.
Unfriend. Yeah, it's on until Valentine's Day, I think.
It's got Reece Shearsmith in it, hasn't it? He played Patrick Troughton in the.
He's brilliant, Reece Shearsmith. He's very funny.
Played
Really
Patrick Troughton in. Mark Gatiss made the show about William Hartnell's era. Did you ever see it?
Yeah. No, but Gatiss directed the play as well.
Yeah, I know, but Mark Gatiss wrote this. He's
Oh, okay.
an old friend of mine.
Okay.
Mark, first I met Mark. He came up to me. He says, "Ian, I want to thank you for the Doctor Who episodes you saved, which was a great honour.
Oh.
I really enjoy meeting you. You're very sweet, and I really would like to go to this with you.
Yeah, we'll try and make it happen. Leave it with me.
I will leave it with you. How can I give you my? I don't want to give it my phone number.
No, don't give it now. Give it to
we'll work
give it
it
to
out
Gobby.
afterwards.
Can Gobby give you my email? He's got it.
I've
Yeah,
got his email. I'll
And
send you the email.
I'll make. Is email the best way to contact you, Ian?
Now, give me your email me with your phone number. I like chatting.
Yeah, we'll work that out. And
sort
very
that out.
quickly, just to echo the time profit, yes, indeed. Well done, Bill Nye, on the Oscar.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
Bill Nye is one of my best friends in the
Well
whole world.
deserved.
He's been nominated. I'm so happy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I've really enjoyed his performances in so many things.
He was in Doctor Who as well. Remember?
Was he?
Yes.
Very
Yes.
excellently portrayed part as the art gallery curator who speaks at
My favourite ever comedy show he starred in was called Agony. It was in 1979, 1980, and 81 with Maureen Lipman, and her mother was played by oh God, what's her name? Maria Charles. Okay. Of course, coming from a Jewish family, all my relatives were Maureen Lipman's mother was all my relatives, my grandma, my aunts, all rolled into one. It was fantastic. It's such a wonderful show. It's the only show I've loved better than Fawlty Towers. But of course, it came out on the DVD through network, but they edited it down heavily and took loads of scenes out of it. Yeah. The music was tragic. And then the BBC brought it back called Agony Again, and that's never been on video.
I think Gobby was trying to get a word in edgeways.
Yeah, I was just saying that particular one with that episode with Bill in where he's the music, his speech about what was the artist? Vincent van Gogh literally brought me to tears.
Yes.
Literally brought me to tears. It was one of the most emotional things I've ever watched. It's only short, but oh my God, it's
Who is
powerful.
the Doctor? Where can I watch it? I'd like to see it.
It's Matt Smith, Series 5, Episode 10.
Matt Smith.
Yeah. Stephen Moss's here as produced it, and Matt Smith as the Doctor.
Yeah, okay.
Written by Richard Curtis, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes, it was. Oh,
wow. Okay. All right.
So
I officially have to go.
Go.
To everyone. Ian, absolute pleasure.
Bill Nye was in this series, Agony. He played a major starring role, and he was only about 20 years old at the time.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Fantastic.
God bless the fire. It's been so nice for you to drop in.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Great to see you guys. All right, how do I do this? I just press leave. Okay. Lots of love and to everyone. To everyone that's been commenting, I've been reading them all. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
She's
that was nice. Yeah, she's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I'll pass her your email address when we finish doing this, so we can get it sorted for you, mate. No problem at all. No problem at all. Oh, that was amazing.
Wow. Yes. Wonderful. We just had a wonderful hour, 15 minutes of conversation. What an hour and 15 we just had.
It's just been brilliant.
Ian, what a wonderful chat.
We're not finished.
We certainly aren't.
No,
where should we go next?
I want to go back to what I was saying before she joined us. Because it's the theme of your show. I'm trying to explain what makes Doctor Who special, why we love it so much. It's not an easy thing to do. No, everybody, if you ask 100 different people, you'll get 100 different answers. But you have to accept that it's an intangible magic, a brilliance, the idea, Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert's idea of the old man in the police box was brilliant, the anti-hero. And he was. I always saw the Doctor as an old man with a granddaughter. I mean, it broke my heart when she left. I've had a friendship with her all my life. I've even been down there for dinner loads of times and stuff.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I was doing producing with Gary Lee. We're doing the spin-off. I was putting the money up and he was putting half the money up for a spin-off called Shakedown in the 90s. And
I remember that. Yes, I bought that video.
Okay, so my terms was I'm going to put 10 or 15 grand in. I want Caroline Ford to star in it, so I got her the role in it because she was my friend at the time, and I ended up pulling out because Gary signed a contract with Terence Dix that we only gave us a right to sell it for a year, and then after that we'd have to renegotiate. And I just said, "Fuck off! I'm not putting money into something that we lose the rights to in a year's time. Why would I? What's the point?" So Keith Barnfather came to me begging for the money to put into Downtime, which I did. So I'm one of the 3 producers of Downtime. Now, Downtime with the Yeti and with Sarah Jane Smith and Victoria Waterfield and Professor Travis. The thing about Downtime is and it introduced Kate Lethbridge Stewart for the first time as Nick Courtney's daughter.
Yes, it did.
I mean, it was the Brigadier's story, really. But Downtime couldn't be called Doctor Who. That's the point. It was a spin-off using characters from Doctor Who and even monsters, the Yeti from Doctor Who. But years later, I decided, just against lots of people's advice, because they said you won't ever be able to exploit it, was to bring Sylvester McCoy into the recording studio and film a load of scenes where he's sitting at a desk with Padma Sambavar playing chess with those Yeti pieces. You remember the Yeti pieces?
Yes.
He's playing chess together with Sylvester McCoy, playing chess with Padma Sambavar, who looks a hell of a lot more like the Wolf Forest character than Harry Russell's. What's all that noise? We're getting all sorts of interference.
It's okay. It's stopped now, whatever it was.
Right, so
Yeah, okay. Carry on.
So I made sure that Padma Sambavar looked like Padma Sambavar. I used an actor friend of mine called Stephen O'Donnell, who was in a series with Rick Mayall called Bottom. He played a character called Spud Gun. Anyway, he played Padma Sambavar with a chessboard. And what happened is they would move the pieces on the chessboard, like the Brigadier and the Yeti, and then you would go to the astral zone where the events of Downtime were being acted out. So every bit of footage from the original Downtime was in it, interspaced all the way through with scenes with the Doctor and Padma Sambavar. So I've got this wonderful 4-part version, like a full-length Doctor Who story, which I'm begging the Russell Minton, I'm begging him, when you eventually do this box set called The Wilderness Years, which will be the years between Survival and Rose, The Wilderness Years, which will include, hopefully, Dimensions in Time and the TV movie with Paul McGann and The Curse of Fatal Death and The Scream of the Shalka, all those things. I want to use this version of Downtime because it can never come out unless it's through the BBC, because it's Doctor Who. It's actually got Sylvester McCoy's title sequence. So I want them to release it. I've offered them free. I've offered them I want them to use it. Because Downtime, surely, because it's the Brigadier and everybody, would have to be on the Wilderness Years box. So as I own part of Downtime, I only want to give them permission free to use Downtime if they use the alternative version with Sylvester McCoy, which was brilliant. We filmed it against green screen, and then we made it all look like it was Detson Monastery.
Wow.
I'd love to see that.
Someone says here, I always thought Dimensions in Time could never be reshown or released. Dimensions in Time is only 12 minutes long. I have got a 35-minute version with all the rare deleted scenes. The director helped let me get all the footage. There's tons of scenes in Dimension Time that weren't shown on TV. And I edited them with decent music. We used the music score from The Green Death from Jeffrey Bergen.
Oh.
Not The Green Death, sorry, Seas of Doom. Sorry, Jeffrey Bergen.
Oh, right, even better.
Anyway, so I've got the 35-minute version of it. It's fantastic. The best, how J&T could take out the best scene of the whole show, given how campy he was, I've never understood. The Rana looked straight to camera, and she's just been talking about the Doctor. She says, "Oh, Doctor, I'm going to miss you so little." That scene why did they leave that out?
No idea. It's a brilliant scene. That sounds awesome. Makes no sense.
I've got a load of footage of John Pertwee with Deborah Watling running around the ship. Someone says I've heard that Colin Baker did a Doctor Who spin-off. He did. It was for Bill Baggs, and it was called The Air Zone Solution. It had Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy and John Pertwee and Peter Davison all in it.
Wow.
All 4 Doctors were in it, but they couldn't call it Doctor Who. But the Dimension in Time, of course, is Doctor Who. When you actually edit it properly, not so rushed, without that awful Keith McCulloch music, when you make it into, as it should have been, 35 minutes long, it looks much more like proper, true classic Doctor Who, and it paces itself properly, and it's brilliant.
No. That's really interesting.
Stunning, isn't it?
They can't get the rights to it without me because they haven't got the footage. The director died, so the footage doesn't exist. I've got the only copy of all these deleted scenes.
Wow.
Which I'm glad. If you look at the DVDs, have you ever seen the DVD of the collection with Vengeance on Varos? Because
I haven't, no, because I haven't bought the Blu-ray sets.
17 or 18 minutes longer than the transmitted story, because Ron Jones gave me his first cut, so it's got a time code in it. So someone at the Beavers, but I gave it to Beaver to use. Someone very, very cleverly, they put the decent footage and joined over where the missing scenes, and they kind of use a blurring where the time code was, so you don't see, you hardly notice it. It makes the story doesn't half look much better. They added music to it. So those of you who bought Doctor Who the collection, that'll be on season 22, won't it? Yeah,
22. Yes, yeah.
And watch the extended Vengeance on Varos, please, because it doesn't work as a series, as a, you know, like especially where Syl blows a fuse and he gets so angry he can't speak. I mean, there's wonderful stuff in it, and it was much, much better than what was transmitted. Such a better version. You should watch it. And again, they didn't do it, but I gave them Mark of the Rani, which has got the whole scene in the TARDIS at the beginning. She's dressed in Kew Gardens. I think they put it in as a deleted scene, but you know, it should have been edited together. What they did with Vengeance on Varos is marvelous. I hope they'll do that with the Happiness Patrol. I've got an 18-minute longer version of Happiness Patrol.
How much longer?
18 minutes.
18 minutes longer. Wow.
So, and again, the story makes much more sense, you know, when they're all chopped down, which is why I got angry with Dan Hall over Silver Nemesis, because Silver Nemesis, the version that they put out was 10 minutes longer. That was much better than what they put on the DVD.
Well, I hope RTD is listening to this, Ian, because it occurs to me that if you've got 18-minute longer versions of a Happiness Patrol and so forth, a streaming service would be the perfect place to show them, where that runtime isn't crucial.
I've got private copies. These are BBC copyright.
Well, that's exactly why I'm saying I hope RTD's listening, because surely he could have some influence there to get these treasures back out where they belong. Luckily,
all the Happiness Patrol footage was digital, so it's all the missing scenes are just as sharp as the existing scenes. Whereas Vengeance on Varos, it's clear that the deleted scenes are not as good quality, but as they've blended them in so well, it makes it great to watch. It's a much better story with these scenes in. Ed Stradling and I always argue about this because he thinks less is more, and I think more is more. And I like to see the fullest, most extended version of them as possible. If Russell is listening, and I'm sure he isn't, he's far too busy at the moment. If he was listening, he should really try and get some of those deleted scenes back from his earlier stuff and make extended episodes. For instance,
what a brilliant idea.
I was very lucky to get all the footage from Blink. Was it Blink? No, Blink. Agatha Christie.
The Unicorn and the Wasp.
The Lion and the Unicorn. Sorry, the Unicorn and the Wasp.
Unicorn and the Wasp. Yes, Gareth Roberts. Of course.
Long scenes at the beginning and the end with a very elderly Agatha Christie in bed with the doctor visiting her.
Oh.
They're wonderful. And I put that together, and again, it made the whole story about 20 minutes longer.
But, you know, but why not? Why not have the choice to see the story in that version?
When they put them out on Blu-ray and DVD and stuff, they've never bothered to make an extended edition, and they should. I did an extended edition of Doomsday because again, I had all the footage, and that's about 50 minutes longer. You know, where big is. So I always like to make. I've always done that. I mean, when you go back to Sharda, I was the first person to try and edit the missing scenes of Sharda into the story using.
So what you're telling us is that there's hidden versions of new stories.
Oh, loads!
Discovered
loads and loads and loads.
Amazing.
I know that when they shot Rose, a lot of the film stuff had a line through the film, so they had to reshoot it. But I think if it still existed, I know there's a lot of scenes in there that aren't in the transmitted version. If there's any way that the restoration team could get their hands on that and do an extended version, people love like director's cuts extended version.
They certainly do.
Someone's talking about the Satan pit again. The scenes in the Satan pit where the Doctor and what's the woman's name who goes down the pit with him?
Oh,
The Doctor goes down the pit in a
scientist,
spacesuit with one of the.
Is it Ida? I'm only guessing there.
Anyway, Ida, yeah, it was Ida something or other. Yes, it is Ida.
But
Anyway,
fantastic.
There was the missing scenes where it starts snowing. So me and my assistant here, who's a video editor, he put the snow on for me. So I've got a longer version with the snow of all the scenes that were missed. You know, because when they did put some deleted scenes on some of the box sets, if you got enough skill to color correct them and have the effects back on, you can then make your own extended version. I just wish the BBC would release them for everybody. I like extended versions. I think they're much better.
I'm completely with you, Ian. Where would you sit with the vexed question of colorization, which is being talked about in some
circles? Talking about the colorizing a naughty child. I don't care. I won't watch the animations in color. I watch them in black and white. They're intended to be in black and white, so it doesn't appeal to me. But I know lots of people want it, so I'm not going to stand by me and spoil sport. But I want them in black and white.
Do you think that colorizing might secure the show's accessibility for the next 50, 100 years? Make it more accessible to new audience.
Let's get all of them animated in some form first.
Yeah.
I don't care about colorizing that exists. We're still missing the Myth Makers, the Massacre, the Dalek Master Plan, the Savages, the Smugglers. All these, we're missing them.
Absolutely. Wheel in Space. Why didn't we get the Wheel in Space from that team that did Rapid Terror? That trailer was fantastic.
We've got 2 existing episodes. David Stead didn't want to give back part 3. I was the one that persuaded him, and I let me take it back. I was the one who gave them part 3 through David Stead. The other 4 episodes, they've done a great bit of animation in part 1, about 10 or 12 minutes. So they've only really got 3.5 episodes to animate. Doesn't make sense to me because that will give them the whole of Series 5.
Well, someone must be thinking about it.
Someone's got to be thinking, surely.
Yeah, someone's got to be thinking.
It needs to be done. It needs to be.
Do you know how well the animated DVDs sold?
I would say Marco Polo is the most important one that needs to be animated of all because of its importance in the scheme of things in Series 1. And the Master Plan because it's the best Doctor Who story ever made. We need to fill these gaps in. Yeah. The Space Pirates, because not only was it a fabulous story, but the episode we have, part 2, is by far the most boring episode. Hasn't got any of the caves and the pirates in and all the subterfuge. Part 2 is just a static episode where you hardly see the Doctor.
Could I just speak to Doc Gamer there? Yeah. Well, we have discussed this, and as far as we're aware, we don't think there are any more episodes we could say are going to come back.
It will always be 97, and I've said that before, but now I'm sure. But there may be a couple in the hands of private collectors who are being real selfish bastards. They would die rather than let them go back. So I'm sure in their will they can have somebody destroy them rather than give them back to the bees. They want to have something that no one else has got.
So sad, isn't it? So sad.
I've beat myself up. Has Phil Morris got a couple more, hasn't he? But if he had, he'd be he's the most kind of person that would not give them back.
Well, I would just say that, to the people who might have episodes.
It's bullshit. There is no Russian private collection.
Yeah.
Solves that issue.
Yeah, I had a good rumour that one.
What do you think I'm sure they're in Vladimir Putin's toilet.
I would just say to anybody who might have a private copy of an episode out there that they're holding on to, I think we need to perhaps accept that the only way we're ever going to have a chance of getting that episode back is to try to understand that person
they're saying here
and
where
understand their reasons.
this guy's someone's asking where is Weatherfield missing episode. Look, Phil Morris claimed he had it, and then he claimed it wasn't there. I don't know, but let's be honest, the animation left a lot to be desired.
Yeah, the animation is not good.
Not good at all. Not good at all.
I didn't bother with that Blu-ray. I stuck with the DVD because the recon is perfectly fine.
Because any animation is better to tell the story than none. It's just that when you look at the style of that and the way they wave their hands around all over the place while the camera's going crazy in circles, I mean, compare that to the Moonbase. Any animated episodes, compare it to the bloody Moonbase.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair.
Why can't we have animation as good as the Moonbase? Why?
I mean, the Moonbase animation is absolutely lovely. It completely matches
we
the
deserve
tone of the
it.
story.
Yeah, because it looks photorealistic. It looks authentic. Every detail is authentic. Every tiny detail. The opposite of Gary Russell stuff. Opposite. I don't want to be ungrateful because I'm grateful for any animation. I'll tell you what I liked was very sweet. I thought was Galaxy 4. It was very sweet.
It was lovely, and it gave me a very warm, glowy feeling. Actually,
as well, it's
charming.
One proboscis from the Chumleys that wasn't real, but the overall telling of the story is quite accurate, and I loved it. I felt like the story wasn't missing anymore. I felt like I got it. I was so excited when they did Fury from the Deep. I started watching it thinking, oh, it's not missing anymore. Then when I got those bloody huge 20-foot seaweed fronds, and I thought, I did. I'm allowed to swear.
You're totally allowed to swear.
You do whatever you want, mate.
Tendrils coming out the sea, attacking the helicopter. I thought, fuck this.
Well, I suppose the thing is, with the animations, to get them right is really quite simple. You just need to or animate what was there to a high quality.
What's a great shame is the 2 Reign of Terror episodes, because parts of them were brilliant, but the editing in part 4 is with people's eyes in close focus.
It is really off. Yes, I have to agree.
Ruined a good thing with that. But by the time they did the 10th planet, they got brilliant. They were 50 billion times better. And then Moonbase was even better than the 10th planet. Why are these people not animating the rest? Why have they been thrown out? Why? It was Austin Atkinson was in Australia, Planet 55. They're the best ever. And they really do put Gary Russell to shame. But that Anne Marie or whatever who did the Galaxy 4, she's quite good. And I tell you, whoever was responsible, I know Gary Russell had some input. Both Evil the Daleks and Power of the Daleks were good. You know, nothing wrong with Evil. It was great to see. Just
I mean, Evil really changed course from the Fury of the Deep because suddenly it stuck a lot more faithfully to the source material.
Yes, I really, apart from Fury from the Deep and Rumble Snowman, they made me angry. They were far too many liberties taken. And Charles Norton took liberties with the Macra because he missed the whole scene out where they have the rough and tumble machine. The Doctor goes. But look, the animations bring them to life for me, and the restoration on the Blu-ray set, such as Season 8. I mean, well, to see Mind of Evil looking so amazing, and see Colony in Space looking so amazing. I know that Russell Minton, he works for the BBC kind of marketing department for sales abroad and stuff. I know that he's put all his time and money into making these DVD collection box sets without getting paid. He does it on his free time. And he's
that's amazing.
It is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, absolutely.
My most important comment on this whole podcast. Everybody listening who's a Doctor Who fan, everyone who is a Doctor Who fan, even if money's tight, please find a way to buy these collections, because only by them all being made and existing do you have the history of Doctor Who forever to watch. So please, even if you don't like a series, please do what I do. I mean, I go out and buy this. I've just bought 2 copies in advance One on Zavvi and one on Amazon of season 9. I don't need 2 copies. And also, in fact, I contribute. I get 3 copies sometimes. I don't need more than one, but I'm buying them because I want to do my bit financially to support them. Because it's so, no TV show in history has ever, not Star Trek, not even Star Wars, ever put anything for the fans together so lavishly. These box sets, they're not for the general public. They're not for the 14-year-old kids who are going to fall in love with Shooty Gatwa, although then maybe 3 years later they'll get into the old Who. That's what happened. A lot of people started with New Who and started to discover old Who.
Yeah.
Well, I've got to agree with that because I mean, if anyone's got like maybe a Star Trek Next Generation box set or something, the episodes on there you get maybe 5 or 10 minutes per episode maximum, less. You know, it's often the extra idea of extras is about 4 1-minute snippets.
I've got a very close friend called Matthew Vaughan who took me in my wheelchair to both Israel and to America for my nephew's wedding last August. And he's a massive Doctor Who fan. In fact, he's so much so he starts reciting lines from Planet of Evil or Pyramids of Mars. He just every single line. Looking for lunch with Eric Saywood, and I said, "Look, don't go over the top." He ended quoting half the lines of the Visitation back to him. He's not really on the scene, as it were. He's just a private fan who cares and loves for the episodes. And unlike me, he refused to watch Jodie Whittaker. He didn't watch any of her episodes. Even me, much as I hated her, at least I gave him a chance.
Yeah, I watched most of it.
I hadn't watched it. How good Fugitive of the Doom was. And I loved the last one. I loved Power of the Doctor. It was so moving to see Sylvester McCoy confront Ace and to see...
that was beautiful.
And to see Davison confront Tegan. There were good things from a bad era, but the era was bad. I mean, you've got to accept that it was not good. Chris Chibnall is not a great writer. And he was the wrong person for Doctor Who, and he could have killed it. If Russell had, I believe, a friend of mine who's quite well known, I daren't mention his name, but you will know who he is. A friend of mine said to me, Russell always told me if Doctor Who ever really needed him, you know, if it was going to be suffer and lose, be a cancel or, you know, was in dire straits, he would come back and rescue it. And he did, God bless him. He came back to rescue it. My relationship with Russell has been a bit strange. When he's seen me, he's been very, very effusive, hugs, kisses, you know, and with that black tie dinner in Cardiff, and he was doing the auction of props. He says, Sir Levine, are you going to pop, you know, Sir Ian, are you going to bid on this kind of thing? He was being very affectionate publicly. And then I went to the Torchwood premiere. I was asking some questions about Jack's involvement in both Doctor and Torchwood and something. He says, Ian Levine, you're not a journalist, so fuck off.
People post that clip at you when they're being mean, don't they, Ian? I mean,
everyone said, the Levine haters say it was malice. I think it was done endearingly because he knew me well enough to say it.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure. Was him telling me to fuck off with a bit of malice, or was he just joking?
Well, this is true.
I suppose it depends what you thought of the question.
The most important thing is that whatever, even if he hates me, whatever he thinks of me, I think he's a fucking genius. I'm so glad. My greatest wish for him is to bring Dr. Who back and save it. And I'm so grateful to him. My only misery is that it's only 8 episodes. I think that's shit. But they'll be wonderful. I don't see why we can't have 13 again.
Well, I mean, I'm hearing good things. Although, I mean, I've been trying to avoid spoilers because, you know, it's in my position. It's been a little bit frustrating, but I do have hope that I will get to see.
Doctor Who with Jodie Whittaker had the public had left in droves. No one watched it anymore. They lost interest. Now, what's this?
And the public gave us such a fantastic start as well, Ian.
No,
it wasn't like they didn't give her a chance.
When Russell did Journey's End, which was the last of his 4 series before the specials. Journey's End was not only the highest AI, that's appreciation index, Doctor Who's ever had. It was the highest. It was number 1 on the TV chart, and it was the highest ratings. It had about 10 point something million viewers overnight. It was, everybody loved Journey's End. And look, it had the Daleks and Davros and Sarah Jane and Captain Jack and Rose. It had everybody. Everybody.
This is Russell's great achievement, isn't it? Because he managed to turn Doctor Who back into something that people were talking about.
Exactly.
And you were talking about Rose.
There is no better way to bring the show back than with David Tennant and Catherine Tate. Nobody can come up with a more ingenious way. It's stunning, and I can't wait. I'm counting. I'm thinking, oh, we've still got 10 months to go. Oh, it's just wonderful. Such a wonderful thing to do, to give David Tennant 3 more episodes with the Celestial Toymaker, and then to Shooty Gagwa.
When I saw Rose, I was at a house party, and the party was sort of going to start warm up that evening, and it was a bit early in the evening, and Doctor Who was on, so the kids were around as well, from the various people's children were running about before the party got started, And I was the only person who'd seen Doctor Who before, or who at least was prepared to admit that I'd seen Doctor Who before, because the other adults hadn't been bothered about it, or just thought it was stupid in the 80s or something and not paid attention. And it was a wonderful moment for me to see the show win over all of these people.
But what
course of that episode, and it was electric, and the whole country was talking about it afterwards. And for those of us like yourself, obviously, Ian, who'd endured the Anorak years,
and
to have the show being loved again, like you said, it was so moving. But that's what it was, wasn't it?
Can you guess my favourite New Who?
Oh gosh, that's such a cruel question.
It's just one of them, isn't it?
That's a cruel question.
The clue is it's a 2-parter. There is one 2-parter that I hold so far above everything else. I consider it to be not just best Doctor Who, but the second best, really, best New Who to come close to Master Plan, and the best New Who of all time.
Oh God!
Something I've watched.
I could take a risk on this. Rise of the Cybermen / Age of Steel.
No, absolutely.
Oh God!
No,
there's so many.
God. Something I've watched 100 times.
Well,
someone's
we
put
really
that.
have to say, let's try Family of Blood.
Yes, he's got it.
Oh yeah, well done. It is brilliantly written, isn't it?
Well done. You've got it. Silence of the Library is incredible. The fact that he meets his future wife before he knows who she is.
Yes,
She's
had all. It is Silence of the Library, Forest of the Dead. Yes.
Silence in the library, is it? Yeah, but that sounds right. Is
it Silence in the Library? No, it is Silence in the Library. Sorry,
yeah.
Alex Kingston is one of the best actresses Britain has ever bred. The story is so the way at the end she ties him up, and so she can plug the thing together. She gives the life because she doesn't want him to. If he gave his life, he never experienced the years together that we had. He never experienced the singing Towers of Beryllium.
Yeah.
Everything about that, and then followed by The Husbands of River Song.
Ah, yeah. That is a good one.
She says, "How can you expect the stars to love you back? The doctor doesn't waste his time loving someone. The doctor wouldn't be here; he'd be out busy somewhere." And he turns to him and he goes, "Hello, sweetie."
Just right line. You're right. I mean,
it's a great line.
Please, God, please, Russell T Davies, please bring back River Song, please.
It would be so nice. It really would.
She came on board. It would need Stephen Moffat to write it. It's whether he would write for it again. He came on board. Just everything about the River Song, and the other one I love, which a lot of people didn't like, is Let's Kill Hitler, because the brilliance of regenerating into River Song for the first time, and her being impregnated to kill the Doctor. What a brilliant! What a mind fuck all the way round, because
Yeah.
you don't understand it till you've seen the Husbands of River Song backwards. You really understand.
Well, I'm really happy to come and stand by your side on this, Ian, because I mean, a lot of fans do not like River Song, or don't seem to. You know, I've never felt like that. I feel the same as you. I feel it was always very inventive and very creative.
Every episode with her in Sean, she's brilliant. The character's brilliant.
I'll also say this, Ian.
Those years with her, the many years with her, the episodes in between without her, like The Girl Who Waited, and what's the one I'm thinking of? The one where Amy grows old. What's that called?
No, that is The Girl Who Waited, where Amy is the robots, and she has to.
The Girl Who Wait. Oh no, that's the girl who. That's the one from the.
Yeah, that's the girl who lived, the stroke girl who died in season 9.
From.
But the Amy story is series 6.
No, you're right.
The girl who waited. Yeah, I think it's episode 10.
And the God Complex, and especially the Mark Gatiss one about the kid.
Oh yes, I know.
In the wardrobe.
I'm not good with New Who titles. That one's escaping me, but it's before
Night Terrors.
Night Terrors. That's it.
That's it. Thank you. And The Curse of the Black Spot, and those episodes, they were the weak fillers in between the great River Song classics, like A Good Man Goes to War and Let's Kill Hitler, and what's the one with the Churchill as the Prime Minister?
With the Daleks.
Gosh! Oh, not the Pandora.
Pterodactyls.
Yes, I know the Wedding of River Song.
Yes.
No? Yes.
All those songs. No, I don't think River was overused in the end. I wish we'd have more of her.
There you go.
I live for every episode with River Song in it. Everyone.
Well, it did work well, and it worked for me as well.
At the end, when you know she's going to die, and you know that the last time he'd seen her before she died, was on the Singing Towers of Beryllium. It turns out that he knew she spent one night at the Singing Towers of Beryllium. One night was 24 years. That was absolutely.
Yeah, that was lovely. It really was. And Capaldi played that beautifully too.
4 years with her.
Yeah, 24 years.
Brilliant.
I think it's got a certain bombasticness to it. It gets in its own way a bit.
What I thought should have happened.
Sure.
I thought. Oh, it says Sylvia Sims has just died at 89.
Oh
dear.
No.
Oh, that's sad. That is sad.
Yeah.
That is so sad.
Like, of course.
Yeah. So sad.
Yes. So no. I was saying something very important. I lost my train of thought.
We were discussing River Song.
And the 24 years. Yes, I always thought if there was a way to get some DNA of her and clone the body, and then put the intelligence that had been saved to the hard drive of the library, if you could have put that intelligence into a body that was cloned, she could have had another life. Because the memories
might still happen, Ian. I mean, it's Doctor Who.
Memories were all saved inside the hard drive of the library.
Yes.
And we know she died, right? But if there was any way to go back in time and get some DNA, just a hair or something, a Clone Masters could rebuild her without the memories. But then you had the memories from the library. You upload the memories from the library into the new body.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a very well reasoned out, Ian.
Thought about that a lot. Someone says I'm pretty sure she's in Doctor as well. Yes, Ghostlight.
Ghostlight.
A very callous woman in Ghostlight. Like her
Excellent
daughter.
memory. Yes, she was, wasn't she?
His daughter didn't know she was the daughter. I like Ghostlight. I like it. Again, it's much, much better with the extended version. The box, The Blu-ray collection set for season 26 has got the fantastic extended version of Ghostlight in full, and it's a much better story. Again, it's loads longer, and makes far more sense because they had to cram so much down to 325 minutes.
I'd be really interested in that. It's actually on my rewatch list at the moment because, of course, I'm freshening up right now for our upcoming Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy streams. So Ghostlight is on my desk right now.
I was just distracted by someone. I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, I said Ghostlight is on my desk right now because I'm boning up, for our upcoming Colin Baker and Sylvester McCoy streams.
Don't watch the transmitted version. Trust me and watch the full extended version. It's far better. It's even spookier.
Excellent. Brilliant recommendation.
Oh, there you are.
Can I ask you about K9 and Company? Yeah, I wrote the title.
Yeah, feel free to ask that. There you go.
Wow. Basically, because I was a script consultant on Doctor Who and I was also a well-known record producer, you got to remember this is a period when I sold 7 million records in one record.
Yeah.
So, because John gave me, he said as a favour I could write the theme for Ghostlight, for K9 and Company. He said he wanted to do it orchestrally, he wanted something that sounded like the theme from Heart to Heart, which is an American TV series, a big string thing. So I went in with my co-producer, Fiacre Trench, Fiachra. It's an Irish Gaelic name, and we had all the high energy hits in the 80s together. And I went in with him, and we wrote John said, do it on electronics, cheap, and we'll have the arranger copy all the parts in strings and orchestra. So we did that. Then he gave it to Peter Howell, who instead of copying it in strings and orchestra, copied our demo exactly, but even worse than our demo. So even worse for me because Fiacre Trench said he was fed up with all the records we made. My name always came first. So he said either my name comes first, Fiacre Trench first, or I'm not letting you have permission to release it. So I was stuck. It was kind of a bit different.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I don't think it was very good, K9 and Company. So I watched it, I've been left kind of an empty feeling.
Not too happy with it then.
It didn't feel like Doctor Who.
No, not really.
It wasn't the right story, perhaps.
The Sarah Jane Adventures were much more like Doctor Who.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
I see K9 and Company as kind of copy of Beats from the Stones of Blood, really, in terms of the spooky part of it, anyway. And perhaps that was just the wrong story for K9. Perhaps something to do with aliens in office blocks or something where he could zoom around a bit and stuff.
K9 was incidental. Jane, she was much more interested in getting Sarah Jane back. The show was called Sarah and K9.
Yes, it was, of course.
Music, he was supposed to go Sarah and K9.
Yes.
K9. But it was he wanted the word Sarah and K9 in there.
Right.
Just cheesy and twee, and thank God it never happened.
Yeah.
J&T had a very, very strong narcissistic streak. He was not the man to say no to us. I learned many times.
Right, yeah.
You had to lick arse to keep in with him. He fell out with a lot of fans like Jan Vincelovsky. So, because they saw through him. They knew what he was about. What his motives were. He's more motivated by Morecambe Weiss show than he was by science fiction.
Yes.
Which is why, much against Eric's wishes, you had Beryl Reid starring in Earthshock. Ken
well,
Dodd,
I mean, that light entertainment side to J&T is well talked about, isn't it?
The original script of Earthshock has the description of the captain as a grizzled US Marine kind of character with a grizzled stubble and a cigar hanging over his, chomping on a cigar with dog tags around his neck. Now, how that became Beryl Reid, you tell me.
Yeah.
Television magic. Ah,
That was some television magic.
He just looked for a part for his friends without ever considering whether they'd be good for it. I mean, Ken Dodd was just a nonsensical idea.
Oh yeah, it certainly was.
You know, I
mean, unfortunately, miscasting.
Nicholas Parsons happened to be good. He did a good job in it, but that's not why it was cast. He wasn't expected to be good. He was expected to be light entertainment, like Hale and Pace were.
Well, miscasting is ultimately reflected in a particular story's standing with fandom, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It makes that difference, doesn't it?
I mean, I find it quite telling. But at the bottom of most fandom lists, you'll find Time Flight, Time Lash, Twin Dilemma, and Time and Irani. You know,
Yep.
And all of these stories, you know, perhaps in one way or another suffered from JNT.
Well, listen, the prime example was when he was at a convention just after that season of Air, and they asked him what his favourite story to date was. And he hated Keizo on his own. He says his favourite story was the Twin Dilemma. That said it all for me, because straight away,
oh my word,
he had no kind of attitude towards what was good and what was bad. Keizo Andazani was not for him. It was a decent story with a decent director and a brilliant writer, Robert Holmes, who he resented.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Words, I don't want that old toot back on my show. That was his words.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Well, I mean, with Caves of Androzani, Robert Holmes came back to the show with a powerful strength, but it's so tragic.
Robert Holmes was hired to do the Five Doctors, and he started, and everything he did was thrown out. His final idea, which never even made it to paper, he was going to have Sutek as the villain.
Oh. Never heard that. That's fascinating.
JNT was very paranoid about past writers.
Yeah.
He didn't want Robert Holmes on his show, but Robert Holmes, as Eric said, was so much more suitable than other writers. So was Terrence Dicks, but not in the league of Robert Holmes. Which is why John was in the nightclub Heaven when I was DJing. John was sitting there, and he says, "I don't think Robert Holmes thing is going to work out." So you can't just have one of your modern writers do it. You've got to at least have Terrence Dicks. So he did in the end.
Yes.
But Robert Holmes would have written a wonderful story. I like the Five Doctors, but Robert Holmes would have done something incredible.
Oh God, it would be amazing, wouldn't it? It would have been amazing.
Robert Holmes quit because JNT's first of all said the Daleks had to be in it, then the Master had to be in it, then the Cyberman had to be in it, then the Yeti had to make an appearance, and he just kept adding more and more and more and more. So then Robert Holmes says, "I can't deal with this."
Yeah.
Which I can quite understand as a writer.
Toast Crunch. Yes, JNT preferred Twin Dilemma to Keizo Andazani. Yes.
Yeah.
And he said that there's footage of him saying so at one of the conventions. The footage exists.
Ooh. Well, there you go. My God.
He had no taste.
No, clearly not.
Best intentions. The Ledger Hive had the best intentions, but he ruined it within 5 minutes by firing Dudley Simpson and sticking on crappy electronic music instead.
I mean, Dudley was a loss. I have to completely agree.
Someone here is asking, have any news regarding the recent passing of Australia? Yes, he was a hoarder, and he was dying in hospital. His family wanted to sell the house, and when he died, and they just threw half the stuff away. But then fans started to get involved because he had reel-to-reel video recordings from the early 70s, late 60s. So they really, because of the period, the only thing he could have had was the space pirates. But we still think, that may have got thrown away, but he may have taped the space pirates. He did tape Doctor Who's from there onwards. This is what happens when people don't hoard things and they die and they get thrown out. If people are hoarding Doctor Who episodes now, which Paul Vanessis believes they are, then when they die, we won't get them because they'll be thrown out.
So sad. So sad. Really is sad. Unbelievable. So selfish as well. Denying things that we could all enjoy. Such a Such a waste.
Well, I never kept anything, but I gave them everything I got. Not only the missing episodes I found, but all those deleted scenes that I acquired while I was a script consultant. All the extended scenes from Venue Son Varos. Let me just think of the list. Have you seen the famous scene with Tom Baker throwing the prop of the head at the wall? He says,
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Let's get rid of this fucking prop anyway or something.
Yeah, I remember it so well.
Yeah, that was mine. I gave him, that was off a U-matic tape with studio footage that I acquired. And then I had studio footage of Full Circle, Warriors Gate, Castrovalva, Kinder, Black Orchid. All those have been if you look at all those collection, all those extra deleted scenes, they always say thanks to Ian Levine.
Yes, they do. They certainly do. I mean, your contribution is enormous, Ian.
J&T wouldn't let me have any. We had to hide it. Eric Sayward, on a Friday night, J&T went to Brighton and he left the tape in his office. So Eric had me come over and collect the tape on the condition that I brought it back by Sunday night so that it could be on J&T's desk. He wouldn't know it had been lent out. I borrowed them over the weekend, copied them, and returned them. Ron Jones used to do more than that. He actually, Kinder was butchered in the edit, yes. Ron Jones used to bring them round and make a spare copy for me so I could have them all because so much was being deleted. One episode of Kinder was 32 minutes.
Wow.
Wow.
So they're just, when you watch them edited in, they make much more sense. You know, I understand they had to cut them down for time.
Yeah.
In time is the worst because they had to. There was allowed 2 7-minute slots on the actual birthday and on the Noel Edmonds show, right? And
yeah.
Noel Edmonds show, they said no, they had to cut it down 2 more minutes, so they only have 5. So they cut a half-hour program down to 12 minutes. I've got all.
Wow.
Wow.
The director gave me all his tapes very kindly. Stuart McDonald. So the program ends up quite good, looking like a Doctor Who. But it didn't went out. It looked like a jumbled up mess when it went out.
Yeah, I mean that's there you go. It's kind of confusing. It really was.
No, it's just Kinder.
Yeah, Kinder. There you go.
Anyway, please God, one day when they do the Wilderness Years box set, that
when we were
God, tickle.
Should we give him a minute, Gobby?
Yeah, I'll give him a minute.
You're all right for a minute, Ian.
Okay, it's gone.
Yeah, okay,
sure? Okay, mate.
Yeah.
You sure?
Well, I mean, I'll just while you rally a bit there, I'll just say we talked about Kinder last week with Pete Davidson's episode, and one of the things that struck me about it was that in the actual year it went out, Kinder was bottom of the heap in the readers' poll. He below Time Flight.
I know, but look at that remake with the snake. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I mean, I completely agree.
What they remade was fabulous. There's been a lot
but the point I made was that with Kinder, it benefited from the time where suddenly fandom as a whole suddenly started to get access to video recorders, and a lot more people could suddenly start to rewatch stuff.
Yeah, but I bought my video recorder to take Mask of Mandragora. That's
yes, you did.
I taped every episode from then onwards. James Russell had a few months before me, so I copied off him the Seeds of Doom and the repeat of the Planet of Evil and of the Sontaran Experiment.
But again, that shows your dedication, Ian, because back in 1976, you went out and got then a very expensive piece of machinery.
James Russell was staying in the Lake District because his dad, Ken Russell, was a famous film director, of course. So I had to go from Blackpool to the Lake District to pick him up. Then we had to drive right across country to Leeds to this guy called Angus Tauber, who had taped Revenge of the Cybermen Part 4. We never found anybody with an older episode as that. This was in 76. And
Yes.
that in only 75. And that was the first one we found, less than recent. And going all that way had to come all the way back to Blackpool to plug my parents' machine and my machine together to copy this Revenge of the Cybermen Part 4. Then go all the way back to Leeds to give it back to him.
Yeah.
Like just 1 ton makes
Things we used to do.
People take them so much for granted. It makes me sick. They don't know how. When I started looking for episodes, well over half the John Pertwee was in black and white. And
Yes.
I found Tom Lundy in America taped. He says, "Did I take the demons?" Of course, I take the demons in Los Angeles with this guy Tom Lundy. He says 1 episode in black and white. Nonsense. 4 episodes in black and white. Only 1 was in color. Only part 4 was in color. Parts 1, 2, 3, and 5 were only in black and white.
He may be mixed up with Planet of the Daleks, which was 1 part in black and white, wasn't it?
Yes, but that was never shown on TV. The Demons were shown in Los Angeles by a PBS station, and we hired a machine, paid a lot of money to tape it. So then my copy in color was then used by the restoration team to put over the black and white signal. As was Terror they did that for Terror of the Autons, they did that for the Silurians, they did that for the Demons, and Curse of Peladon, yes.
Mind of Evil was a different process, wasn't it?
I found in either Canada or America, I found color copies.
Right.
And of course, the missing Pertwee episode completely was Invasion of Dinosaurs Part 1.
Yes.
Just Invasion. And I had a film print of that. And that's the one that still needs colouring properly. Because the colour version they put out, which is on BritBox now,
was pretty feeble, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they will. Paul Vanessis has assured me when season 11 comes out that the colour on in Part 1 of Invasion of the Dinosaurs will be every single bit as good as the other 5 episodes, which will be fabulous.
Excellent.
I always dreamed of getting all the Pertwees in colour. You're so lucky. That's season 8. Mind of Evil was the worst one. We thought we'd never get it in colour. So they managed to colour recover those chroma dots from the film prints about episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Episode 1 had no chroma dot. So Peter Crocker and what's his name? Not Stuart Palmer. Babel Colour. Stuart something like that.
I know who you mean. Oh.
Yeah, they coloured Part 1 from scratch. Look how wonderful it looks.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's one of my favourite stories to enjoy. It's Mind of Evil is a wonderful story.
Well, fantastic.
I like it because it keeps this tone from Series 7.
Somebody here is hoping for season 21 next. I've read loads of stuff online to say that season 20 was starting before COVID. And if there's going to be a next one, it's bound to be Stephen. I'm not saying this officially because I don't know. Because Russell Minton is always very polite and nice and chatty, but he won't tell me anything that's top secret. So I can't be sure. But yeah, I am as sure as I could be that season 20 will be next.
There you go.
Only because I know people have worked on it. They haven't worked on 21, but they've worked on 20.
Ah.
So there you are. It's not going to be 21 next.
No.
Arm of knowledge, Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
If you want an educated guess, and it is only a guess, but it's quantified by certain things that I've learned to know, people that have met working on things. I do believe that season 20 will be the next one in the summer.
Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I'm coming out the 20th of March. I believe sometime, hopefully July time, you'll get season 20. Now, what comes after that is anybody's guess. My guess is season 15, because they did talk about Horror Fang Rock a long time ago. That's what I believe. But I want to see a Troughton season. But I want to see it. I
Yes.
didn't see, much as I love season 2 and the way they restored it to perfection, I don't want to see another story not animated. I want to see I want to see either season 4, 5, or 6 with every story animated that's missing.
Yeah, well, it's certainly doable.
I don't want to see series 1 come out without an animated Marco Polo, which leaves season 3, which has got the most episodes missing, which is bound to be, God knows what's going to happen to it, bound to be near the end. I'd actually put into motion to start working on the master plan. I already started to assemble a team together to
Yes.
privately animate it. Of course, all the Levine haters, they're all starting on about, look, what happened to your shard, look what happened to your mission of the unknown. Why should anybody waste time helping you? So we've already got a game I can't show on this podcast. Got loads of character drawings from the characters, proper
Yes.
decent ones that look as good as the moon base. And I mean, if you saw my mission of the unknown, you'll see it was pretty good. Anyway,
I have seen clips of it. I don't think I've seen the whole thing, but I will search it out. And I would love that dream to come true for you, Ian, for Master Plan to be animated.
I wanted to start the master plan, but as the news broke, they're doing the Smugglers and the Underwater Menace, and Russell T Davies mentioned something about Maverick Chen. I don't
Did you know?
I don't dare take the risk because I lost £41,000 in Chicago.
Yeah, you don't need to get burned on that twice, do you? What a shame, huh?
There was a wonderful guy, very talented guy, privately working on the Celestial Toymaker, and there are some clips on YouTube if you look them up. Celestial Toymaker animation, you'll see them. What do you think of Mission to the Unknown recreative version? Now, I took their recreative version and we put the sound from the William Hartnell era episode in it. And I put that on my page on Facebook. That looks fantastic. Much better than the actors. Because, I don't think the acting style was quite professional for Doctor Who. And yet, with the original sound, with Edward D'Souza and stuff all synced into their footage, it looks wonderful. It looks like a real episode. I still think my animation that we did is the best version.
It's an interesting question, though, in that, would it necessarily be prohibitively expensive in these days of green screens to recreate live action?
Just jumped the gun here. So what I'd started to do was line up actors to wear the costumes and recreate our green screen version of the Dalek Master Plan. I've got a distant cousin who looks like William Hartnell. We're going to put him in the wig and the outfit. We're going to have them speak the lines correctly so that we could sync up the actual original soundtrack to them. And then in 4 or 5 years' time, when what they call deep fake is more accessible, we could then take a William Hartnell face and put it over the actor who's portraying him.
Of course.
So it was my plan already. I'd already got people all on board and everything. Talk about filming the 9 missing episodes of the Master Plan. But again, I put it all on hold for now while we see what happens with these, because I don't want to turn anyone's toes or waste money. Of the money that I don't have that I have to raise.
Well, you don't need a repeat of Sharda, no.
Someone contacted me and they said, we're going to do a crowdfund thing and I'll run it, he said, to get money in. And as soon as I mentioned I might be doing this, all the people that hate me started on about people got ripped off by Ian Levine before because they
people are just endlessly bitter. It's just the nature of life that,
Let me give you an example, nothing to do with Doctor Who.
Yes.
My music capacity, we make these Northern Soul records. Now, that putting them out on vinyl singles, that's what the DJs want, but they're very expensive to do. These days, you can't put out a vinyl single without costing you £2,000 to press it because you have to make stampers and labels, and they'll have to press on the plastic and make the molds, and all that kind of stuff. So someone said to me on my Facebook page, this record I did by Candy Staten, the famous soul singer, can't you put it out on a single? And I said, I wish I could, but I can't afford to. This guy called Stephen Horn from Canada came out of the blue. Never heard of him, never heard a peep from him before. Came to me and says, I've got some savings. I believe in your music. I really, really think you're doing a wonderful job. I'd like to help if you put my name down as an executive producer. So I did. So he paid for 6 singles to Presto. We put 6 singles out.
Wow.
And he turned vicious. He said, I demand my money back. I said, we spent it on making the records. He says, well, sell your Doctor Who props. I burst out laughing because I sold my Doctor Who props 20 years ago. Don't have any left now. So he says, sell your valuable Northern Stories. I want my money back. If I don't get my money back, I'm going to go on the internet and ruin your name for all time. I said, you came to me. You offered to put money into these records. He just turned vicious. Everyone that tried to reason with him on my behalf, he turned really, really
what a shame.
toxic. And now he spent 6 months all over the internet saying Ian Levine ripped me off. Ian Levine is a crook, he's a thief. And I got a lawyer in Canada to actually serve him with papers, and he's still carrying on.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Ian.
What I'm saying is, with the best intentions of the world, you can try to do right. Like, all I've ever tried to do with Doctor Who is to give episodes back to Beav and to give the BBC extended deleted scenes, to do everything I can to enhance them releasing them, to give the fans back what I believe they deserve. But the fans turn on me, and they think.
Well, I hate to say it, but
number of fans
people could be.
I have to say, look, the number of fans on Gallifrey Base who slagged me off, who said Ian Levine only makes these special projects so he can sit at home and wank over them and have his own.
Grief! Wow.
I never did. I only made Shard because Dan Hall led me on to believe he was going to release it. He liked it.
The only people who say things like that are the people who never do anything.
I've only done it for myself. And they were then, when I said I want to do the master plan, they started saying, don't be fooled anybody putting money in towards this, because he only does them so he can have the only copy.
What a terrible thing to claim.
I understand what I've had to put up with over the years.
No, I mean, I can fully believe it, Ian.
Terrible crap I've had to deal with.
I mean, some people are just very perverse in making it all about themselves, aren't they? They're fueled by jealousy.
For 60 years, I care about Doctor Who. Before I knew they'd wipe the episodes, I used to dream, but one day the BBC would start the beginning to show them all again. And it was only when, in the mid-70s, by the time they made the programme, Who's Doctor Who? Do you remember that? The Lively Arts.
Yes, yes.
That programme, that's when we discovered how many were missing. And I had no idea till that point that they were missing. And here was my chance of watching all of Doctor Who again, dashed forever. So we searched everywhere. And once I was J&T's script consultant, he got me into the BBC with a guy called Roger Brunskill, another guy called Peter Lydiard White. We started annexing and contacting all the countries around the world that bought Doctor Who, making an effort to get some of these episodes back. And we did a few. I started out, there was 156 episodes missing, right?
Yes.
So we're now 97 missing. That's a hell of a dent in it.
It's a huge contribution. It's absolutely enormous.
There's 156 missing. We know that. We found some quite quickly because Pamela Nash's assistant, Enid, was so upset to see these pieces of television being destroyed that she gave 3 stories to the BFI, which were the War Games, the Dominators, and the Crotons.
Well, Ian, I can only say that without the love and passion of fandom, and especially without your own contribution, we simply wouldn't have these stories, and we no doubt would have lost a whole load more of them as well.
No, you're missing the whole point. I did not do it to be thanked or to be any kind of.
I know, but I'm thanking you because
I wanted it to exist. I wanted people to get the same pleasure out of them that I got them, and it's unthinkable that my favourite stories actually don't exist. Now, up until
well, that's my point, Marie. You were thinking about me, and you didn't know me, and so many other people who've been able to enjoy the things you say.
This is important. Listen, up until the early 2000s, Steve Roberts and Paul Vanessa always said, whenever they talked to me, what are the episodes you most like to see returned? I said episode 2 and 11 of the Master Plan. They're the best 2. It's my favourite story. Now, the fact that part 2 turned up when no one expected it to was such a miracle. But not only that, when all of them, Steve Roberts, everybody saw it for the first time, they realized how on the ball I was, because I put it to you that episode 2 of the Master Plan, which is called Day of Armageddon, is the single best ever Doctor Who surviving episode of the 60s. As an episode, it is unsurpassable. Douglas Camfield's brilliance, camera work, to the script, not Terry Nation's script, because that was paper thin. What Donald Tosh added to it,
Yes.
what John Wiles brought to it as producer. That episode is the best episode we had. And that everybody said, Ian, that proves you were right when you said that was the best story.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very the same. I mean, it's not always easy to enjoy the recons, but the Master Plan grabs me every time. I mean, I really enjoy watching the Master Plan.
It must be either reenacted or reanimated to bring those missing episodes to life. It must be.
Yeah, I have to agree.
The best episode is part 6, which is fucking brilliant. Which is where the Daleks accusing Mavic Chen of incompetence because they lost the Terranium core, and then they found out that the Dalek ship has been stranded on planet Myra, and Mavic Chen says, he says, really? What was it? He says, and you had the audacity to claim that I, Mavic Chen, were incompetent. You had the audacity to accuse me, Mavic Chen, of incompetence. And the Dalek Supreme was trying to get a word. It is. And he keeps interrupting him. I mean, really? He says, it is not. And they keep talking over him. It is not an emergency. No, more like a catastrophe.
Oh, wow. Ian, you just bring it straight to life.
So true.
I mean, the way you know those lines.
It's a black,
absolutely.
Black comedy. In the end of part 12, you cannot kill me, I'm Mavic Chen. I mean, it's a black comedy, but it's wonderful. And Terry Nation wanted the 40th century to be an amalgamation of like a melting pot of the human race. Mavic Chen has an African face, which is black. He has white curly hair and he has Chinese eyes. Now that's so politically incorrect for today, but that's what he was. He was half African, half Chinese, and a melting pot, man of the future.
Well, I mean, that's ironic in a way because it sounds like Terry was trying to say the character reflected a wider diversity of humanity than just coming from one country.
Yes, they were. What people today who are for the woke brigade, the politically correct brigade, were objective was as a white man blacking up.
Yeah.
Well, that's very much their problem that they have to put their current day obsessions in the way of something from history.
Mavic Chen is a consummate villain, the greatest villain in the history of Doctor Who, the most rounded, thought-through character you can imagine, most treacherous, perfidious being who was quite willing to betray the solar system to get advantage with the Daleks. But then when he thought they stood a chance of losing anything, he plots with his cohort to begins with K.
Can I interrupt for a moment? Ian and Gobby, I need to leave the stream for a minute.
Well,
I'll be back very shortly.
Well,
but
to be honest,
we've been on for 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours.
We've been talking for ages. Absolutely, that's why I need to leave the stream for a minute.
I need to start thinking about bringing it to close because I've got to go and sort the kids out for their dinner and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, let's move to wind up.
Let's wind this one up.
What would you like to finish with, Ian?
I want to finish with, again, trying to analyse what makes Doctor Who so special for us that no other programme has. In my entire life, apart from Babylon 5, I've never seen another programme. If I could actually distill what it is about Doctor Who and Babylon 5 that are the same, then I could get to what makes them brilliant. Because each one, as different as they are, each one has the same type of believable alien characters. You really get caught up in the characterization. Yes. In early Doctor Who, you got caught up with the meddling monk and his revenge. He follows the Doctor through time and space, trying to get revenge on him for marooning him in 1066. It's about wonderful Mavic Chen, with great villains. Again, Kevin Stoney as Tobias Vaughan in The Invasion. What
Yeah.
incredible
Wonderful.
characterization.
Wonderful.
Doctor Who is not just about science fiction; it's about characters and Shakespearean qualities. Indeed, as in both the myth makers and the massacre are Shakespearean, but massacre much more seriously so. Myth makers are black comedy for 3 episodes, which then, when the horse comes into Troy, turns on its head and becomes brutal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and if we had to find one episode, that episode in, I think is it part 3 or part 4, where the Doctor and Odysseus are inside the horse, and he says, Doctor loses it with Odysseus. You're vile, corrupt, horrible. I want nothing more to do with you, sir.
It might be early in part 4. I'm trying to remember. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely in the end of part 3, start part 4 area.
Yeah, round about that time.
The best scene ever. Sorry, the Doctor's all barking.
It's all right.
The best scene ever is Hartnell's soliloquy at the end of the massacre, where he says, and now they all come. None of them could understand, not even Susan or Vicky or Barbara and Chetterton and Stephen, you know. And he says, at least he remembered to check the controls before he went out.
It's heartbreaking. It's easily just as impactful as anything that David Tennant delivered in his time as the Doctor.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, but nobody ever said these need to be kept.
No.
They have artistic, historical value. Nobody ever gave a shit. They just let them be destroyed.
Sad.
Which I blame Pamela Nash as my all-time arch enemy.
Indeed.
Enemy of Doctor Who fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'd like to thank you for the generosity of your time today, Ian. You have been absolutely captivating. Everyone's been loving the conversation.
Awesome.
And we're raising awareness for pancreas cancer as well. And you know, you just
literally at the end.
So pleased that you agreed to come on.
It's literally at the end, not the beginning. My cousin Rosalie Bleakman, she died of pancreatic cancer, but she was determined to live a bit longer, and she bought herself 3 years just by willpower.
God bless her. I'm inspired by her example, Ian. I'll keep fighting. Yes. You can be absolutely sure of that.
You must at least get through to see Shooty Gatwood.
Yeah.
I'm definitely motivated. Absolutely.
It's funny. Listen, I watch Sex Education. I don't get it. I don't see any doctorish qualities in him at all. But I trust Russell enough to know that he's going to be good. Just like David.
I mean, that's not the only thing he's done. It's just just as big as previous TV role. I mean, he's done a lot of quite credible theatre over the years, Shooty.
I'm sure Russell knows what he's doing. I trust Russell.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Even though he told me to fuck off once, I trust him.
and the chemistry between Shooty and Millie is off the chart.
Oh, you can see it's obvious. It's brilliant. You can see they really do play off each other wonderfully. It's
I'm still filming Sex Education. They've had to film around him.
All right. Well, there you go.
Millie's been on set with Kate Lethbridge Stewart, you know, Gemma Redgrave.
Yeah.
And Shooty's been nowhere to be seen.
Oh.
Anyway, look, my trust is in Russell. I know he won't let it down. I know he will deliver a Doctor Who to cherish. Just like if you look at that first series of 13, Rose through to the Parting of the Ways, there were weaker episodes like The Long Game, but every episode is to be cherished. Everyone.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The old fans like Jan Vincent Rudsky will throw their hands up in horror.
He had so much to prove, and he proved it all.
He threw their hands up in horror at farting aliens, but I thought it was brilliant. I don't mind that at all. You know, some of it gets a bit.
Well, it was finding its ground. Absolutely.
It certainly was.
The first recording block, less said the better. It would appear from fandom stories about how it went.
Oh yeah, but Eccleston didn't get on with the director at all.
No.
He's something or other.
Oh dear.
You know.
Right then, shall we, gentlemen, bring this one to a close?
Yeah.
Thank you, Ian. It has been an honour and a privilege, and I've learned like many other people. It's been awesome, mate.
Will this be online to watch?
Yes, it will.
Oh, yes, it will.
It will be. What happens is, when I drop off the stream, it takes YouTube about an hour to process it, and then it pops up on the channel. Then,
so we'll send you
I'll put links.
You know, I have my own private Ian Levine's Doctor Who group on Facebook. Anyone's free to join if you can find it.
Okay, we'll do.
The group. I
We'll have a
formed
look for that.
back in the old days with the Ian Levine Doctor Who forum. I formed it because so many people are constantly denying me my right to say what I believe. I thought, fuck this, I'm going to have my own page.
Absolutely.
Spot on, mate.
Everybody's free to join. Ian Levine's Doctor Who group on Facebook.
That's something else I didn't even say about you today, Ian, that you are one of the earliest members of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society.
Indeed.
I was at their first meeting in 1976.
Look at that.
There was Jan Vincent Rudsky, Stephen Payne, who's dead now, Jeremy Bentham, Richard Landon, Gordon Blows, Keith Barnfather, and me. And
that's the Doctor Who equivalent of being there for the signing of the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah, we borrowed the print of Tony Cash of the Zarbi Part 2 of the Web Planet. We put it on a projector and watched it for the first time since transmission. But we were the pioneers, yes. And Kevin Davis, forgot about him, yeah. Kevin Davis as well.
Amazing.
We're all on that great picture on stage at the first convention in 77 in Clapham.
Wow.
And Tom Lundy from America's on it. Everybody's on it. Kevin Davis, Keith Barnfather, all of us. Keith, of course, went on to form Mythmakers.
Wow.
Yes, of course.
We were the beginning hardcore fans. We were.
Absolutely.
I only found them because, when I bought my first Philips video machine in 1976 to take Master Mandragora when it came back off the summer break, I phoned Philip Hinchcliffe's office at the BBC. I spoke to his secretary. I can't remember her name now. She was lovely, very helpful. And I told her I bought a video recorder. I think she says, "Have you met Jeremy Bentham?" I said, "No, never heard of him." She said, "He's the historian of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society. Here's his number." And she gave it me, and I phoned him up. I told him I just bought a video recorder. He was very excited. And I went round to his house in Hendon when his mother was still alive. I met him. And that's how we came to go to the first twice meeting.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Fantastic. Once more, what a fantastic life you've led and what fantastic stories you're telling us. Thank you so much, Ian. Thank you.
I was going to say I might be 70 this year, but I've been there, done it, worn the T-shirt, a lot.
You are the embodiment of it, Ian. That's the whole point. We love you. Thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, it's been great.
Good night, then, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thanks so much. And as I said, it'll be back up on YouTube very well within the hour, I would imagine, when YouTube starts to do its thing.
and we move on with the Colin Baker era next week.
Yeah, next Friday, Colin Baker, 5:30 on this channel, and we shall go on to that one. Thank you, Ian. It's been a privilege
God bless everyone. Thank you, Ian, again.
We'll catch you all later. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.